Hey everybody, welcome back to Word Balloon. This is John Suntress. Before we get to the show, a couple show notes. I have a YouTube channel under Word Balloon. It's free. I'm trying to reach at least 1,000 subscribers. I'm just over 800. Everybody's been great. I was at 300 when I first started asking about this, and now I'm over 800. I need to hit 1,000. I would like to start doing live chats on a semi-daily basis and involve the Word Balloon audience, but I need to reach 1,000 subscribers before I can start live chatting. So please, it's free. Would you please consider subscribing? And it's only going to mean more content. I've already got video content up there at my Word Balloon YouTube channel. Check it all out. Also, I know commercials can be a pain in the ass. I know I've been talking about this. Please listen to all the commercials, even the older episodes. I know they interrupt about a minute into the show with one more commercial. I'm trying to fix that, but in the meantime, if you could suffer through that, it's one of the ways I get paid at Word Balloon is by listening to all the commercials. It's greatly appreciated. In fact, one more spot right now, and then we'll start the show. Thank you. Hey everybody, welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Great conversation with Jeff Parker today. Jeff, of course, just wrapped up 12 issues of James Bond Origin with Ibrahim Mustafa. He is, pretty confident that there's going to be more next year as we get closer to the Bond movie, likely. But he's also been doing a great series slamming John Carter and Mars Attacks together. What a great idea. And we talk a bit about that. But we also kind of just mess around like we always do. I saw Jeff in Portland during Rose City, and we had every intention of doing a conversation then, but didn't happen, and that's okay. We still had plenty to talk about this time, and that's why I'm like, hey man, don't worry about it. We'll just get on Skype and do a nice little breezy conversation. Of course, that's exactly what we accomplished. So looking forward to sharing that with you today. Jeff Parker, a nice lengthy conversation. We talk about the Joker movie coming out, Ad Astra, lots of stuff, and I think you'll enjoy it. So Jeff Parker for 2 hours today on Word Balloon, brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners. Thank you greatly, League, for your support via Patreon. Word Balloon is free. It'll always be free, but you're helping out the cause. You're literally helping me out as I continue to try to expand Word Balloon. And, radio is a shaky business. That's all I can say, man. Shifts that I counted on are disappearing, and doing the best I can to make ends meet. And the League of Word Balloon listeners are certainly helping out with their subscriptions via Patreon. So if you like Word Balloon, do you think it's worth $1 a month? Is it worth the price of a comic book a month? I'm not asking for the moon. I know everyone's kind of busy and has their own bills to worry about and stuff, but if you can help out and you enjoy what you hear on Word Balloon, I greatly would appreciate it. Thank you greatly for your support. You can go to patreon.com/wordballoon to my Patreon page, or you can go to wordballoon.com and click on the Patreon ad. But thank you greatly, League of Word Balloon listeners. Word Balloon is also brought to you by Aftershock Comics. Aftershock is a great sponsor of Word Balloon, and they're putting out great books, man. I'm enjoying all of them, whether it's Phil Hester's Stronghold with Ryan Kelly or Tim Seeley's Dark Red and Brothers Dracul and Knights Templar from Cullen Bunn. Also Dark Arc with him and Juan Doe. Marguerite Bennett's Animosity. Garth Ennis' wonderful books like A Walk Through Hell and Jimmy's Bastards. Lots of great names, lots of great genre-bending stories, and it's my pleasure to make you aware of the great books that Aftershock puts out each month. Now, in the days and weeks ahead, we'll be talking to more Aftershock creators about their books, but you don't have to wait. You can go to their website. You'll find full story descriptions, preview pages, and the diamond codes on their books on how to order them through your local shop at AftershockComics.com. All right, let's get into it. Now, it takes a while for us to kick into our Bond talk, but it's there, I grant you, and it's deep dives, because literally James Bond Origin is the Dynamite series that Jeff is doing about 007, taking him back to his younger days, his World War II days. We talk about what the Fleming estate allows him to do and what they don't allow him to do. Really neat stuff. Plus, he's also, as I said, working on John Carter and Mars Attacks, a very funny crossover, and also some other new projects that he mentions as well. I'll let you hear about those in the conversation. But again, it's Joker weekend, so we talk a bit about that. Did everyone see Martin Scorsese's comments about comic book films, that they're not cinema? Very disappointing. Very disappointing. In the same way that Coppola's comments, and he makes the same comparisons that Francis Ford Coppola made a couple of years ago, and says that the Marvel movies and the superhero movies are like carnival rides. I find that really disappointing, man. I wonder if he would have said the same things if he was among the William Wylers and the John Fords and all those great directors of the Golden Age, and when the Westerns were being churned out. And yeah, there are lesser movies, just like in the comic book genre, but I would say that Logan is a great example of quality cinema. Black Panther, I think, is an example of quality cinema. Endgame and Infinity War, the best of the Marvel movies. Certainly Winter Soldier. I disagree. And I know a lot of you do as well. I'm not going to get shitty about it and troll Scorsese. He's an older man. He comes from a different generation. But, I can't help but, as a movie buff, compared the first sound movies to the silent movies. And certainly the silent movies had a lot more going for them than the first talkies did. I do think that this is a new cinematic language in terms of using special effects, even though obviously you can go back to, I suppose, Star Wars for a touchstone of where we are today compared to the way movies were made prior to Star Wars. Visual effects and things. Kevin Feige, I think, was diplomatic in his response to what Scorsese said. But, what else can I say? But I disagree. And again, I think comic book films are developing a new cinematic language, and I think, again, there's bumps in the road, and sure, there are misfires, but there's a lot of exceptional movies that have been made in the last 10 years, if you want to just talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I hope that these older filmmakers come around and realize that this is an interesting world. And I'd love for a Jon Favreau or a Joss Whedon to be able to sit down, and Kevin Feige for that matter, to sit down with Scorsese and Coppola, and Spielberg said similar things. It's interesting. It is that same group, and they all kind of seem to share this feeling about superhero films. I'm shrugging. What else can you say? But I disagree. Anyway, let's get on to our conversation now with Jeff Parker. Again, we talk about the Joker movie. We talk about a lot of other things, along with his new books, including James Bond. It's going to take a few minutes of rambling before we get to James Bond, but it's there. So enjoy this conversation with Jeff Parker and me on today's Word Balloon. All right, here we go. We're already in mid-conversation. Jeff Parker, welcome back to Word Balloon. It's been a long time, man.
Hey, John. Oh, thank you so much for still being here so I can be on this show.
And we just saw each other in Portland, as we were saying earlier, but it ended up just being social, which was fine with me, man. No, we had a nice meal finally together, and then the next day we're hanging out at Helioscope, and I'm saying it right because I always get it wrong.
Yeah, you got it right. And okay. Was that your first time in Portland or just the first time at the show?
No, it was my first time in Portland.
Oh, good.
Yeah, absolutely, man. No, I mean, that's the thing, and I did. I had all these, like, all right, fine, I'll see Rucka, I'll see Fraction and Kelly Sue. I'm like, hell, even, maybe Jen Van Meter, or, Rucka's wife, maybe she'll want to talk. I don't know what she's writing lately and stuff. And it all just became social. And that's fine. That's great.
Yeah.
Honestly,
that's
totally
the problem
cool
of going during a big convention.
Absolutely. I know.
I'm sure this sort of thing, this is happening at New York right now, I guess, while we're safely at home talking. Someone's foolishly trying to get a recording on the floor there, and it just sounds like a cattle auction.
Yeah, honestly, I'm glad you said that, Jeff, because as I've gone on in 14 years of doing this, I don't like doing convention interviews. I used to like it. It's like I like the din, but I always feel too that getting a press pass and stuff, that I'm cutting the line, and that so many other people are there that want to meet you, get their book signed, have a talk with you, and it's like, I'm totally like monopolizing your time. Let me get the hell out of the way. And unfortunately, I know other people that are getting press passes and then doing it. They don't care. And I remember I've many times waited to talk to a Roy Thomas or a Klaus Janson or somebody, like, an older person. And it's like, okay, you've been talking to him for 10 minutes. Quit being an asshole. People are waiting to talk to him.
They are not troubled with your moral qualms.
Nope, and they're just bullshitting. They're not even making a real interview. They're even just bullshitting. I'm like, what are you doing? Get out of the way. So, listeners, if honestly, like you're waiting in line and we're having a conversation or something like that, it's okay to tap me and go, "Hey, I'm sorry, but I really wanted to get my book signed. I will leap out of the way, like I've got spiders on me or something."
Well, let me phrase this for people who are concerned about convention etiquette. The thing to do when you're talking to a creator you like, and you actually can be serving a valuable function by being at the table, thus making them look interesting. But you just stand to the side so you're not like completely walling them off. And it's a certain way. If you just stand like at a 3/4 thing, other people realize they can come up and get their book signed, and thus forestall their OCD treatment for another year while they get everything. It's like, it always kills me, and I'm. It sounds like I'm making fun of people, but it's like I have the same. I have this condition, so I understand it. It's just manifested a different way. Some people will come up and they throw down a big tower of books and want you to sign them, and you try to talk to them, and they're just like, just sign the books, and, and I'm like, I was always of the mindset like, no, I've probably got maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes with this person if they're very in demand. It's like, I want to just ask them a question or talk to them or just say how much I like their stuff, instead of getting their name written several times. Like, you got it one time. What do you need it for? It's weird. I used to just take my favorite book up to, like, I remember going to Brian Bolland in the 80s.
Sure.
I just took him, and I took him The Killing Joke, and I just got him to sign on the page where the Batmobile crashes through, just because I thought it was a pretty cool drawing. And he seemed to like the fact that I only had this one thing, and I wanted him to sign it right there. It's like, because I guess it made it look like I was thinking hard about what he did. Or he was just amused at me. Who knows? But, boy, that guy was great.
No, like you said, you want to, I get it. You want to have a moment. At least I do. And I understand the people that I guess don't. But I have seen that. And conversely, I've never seen an artist that isn't willing to just, be polite and have a moment with the person. Oh, how you doing? Whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think people are missing out now with the here I go into my Generation X old grump thing. Like, they just want the selfies, the kids, or it's really everybody. And it's like, so they take a selfie with someone and send it out. And it really is kind of like, it makes you part of a scavenger hunt. See, got him. Instead of, it's like you got a chance to have a connection with somebody. But enough people actually do that it really is not out of control. You do get those people, they come up and they're very specific about, remembering something you did. And boy, it feels amazing. You think, wow, this thing I was struggling with, you really got something out of it. And, that's the best thing you can get out of a convention.
I can honestly say I get that as well. Listeners came up at Rose City, and they came up at Terrificon in Connecticut as well. And yeah, no, you're right. It is the greatest compliment, and that's why I always kind of stress before I go to a show, hey, I'm going to be here. Like, if you see me, please come up and say hello.
Well, I hope
let me thank you. And really, I feel like I always tell my friends, I'm like, it's like I'm running for mayor. Because I do. I kind of, I shake hands or fist bump or whatever. And, hey, man, thanks a lot for listening. That's cool. Who are you? What do you do? Why are you bothering?
Yeah, they're like, they're thinking, I just met the comics co-sell. This is great.
I'll take that one. I like that one.
Yeah, and you can have that. And I hope that they tell you the thing I often think is that, like, when you're having a dialogue with somebody who doesn't do this all the time, and all you're doing at home listening is like, please ask him about this. Please ask her about this.
Sure.
And whatever. And you so often do it as if we willed you to say the thing in the place we were hoping you would go. It's like, yes. Like, you didn't Mark Maron try to out-obscure everybody and bring up, like, hey, remember this thing you barely probably remember 60 years ago? But also you don't ask the obvious things, and I think that's what people really respond to.
Thanks, man. Well, hell, you were an original guest. I mean, year one, and as I always like to say, man, it was our conversation that prompted Mike Waringo to email me and go, "Hey, man, I'm trying to hear this talk you had with Jeff Parker, and I'm having trouble downloading."
He was using you like tech support.
Pretty much.
That was what was so great. Like, come on, man, I can't get this conversation. How do I do it?
Yeah, because
next thing you know, you're in the conversation with him.
Absolutely, yeah, because he had a Mac and I did my stuff on a PC and I had a link up and I'm like, yeah, just right click on it. And he goes, yeah, the mouse doesn't work that way. There's nothing to click. I'm like, oh, okay, I don't know what to tell you, man, but come on my show. He's like, oh yeah, sure. So, so that was great, and yeah, man, no, it's 14 years later. Here we are. This is good. So let's talk Interman. That was the first conversation. I still have my Interman poster.
Oh, good.
How about that, man? Absolutely.
I've still got a few of those too.
That's cool. I
don't know what I'm saving them for, but I'm totally saving them just in case.
One of Jeff's creator-owned books. One of the was that the first one, Jeff?
Yeah, I had done mainstream comics before then, but mostly as an artist. And that was the point where I thought, okay, I better write and draw something, the kind of thing I want to do, or people are never going to know the kind of stuff I want to do. And so I kind of went with a thing that actually, weirdly enough, grew out of my frustration with working on a Johnny Quest project at Dark Horse years before. And we had briefly talked about, not with Dark Horse, but I had briefly talked with other people about doing a grown-up Johnny Quest, and Doug Wildey was going to be an advisor on it and everything. Wow. And then that never ultimately went anywhere. But it led me down the thing where I was, with other stuff I was reading at the time, where I started coming up with the Interman idea about somebody whose DNA adapts to an environment. Because I was reading a lot of Stephen Jay Gould, who was a big naturalist at the time.
Yep.
And I was reading him, and I was reading Trevanian books like the Eiger Sanction. So I had those two together slamming in my head, and that sort of kind of led to the Interman. And which is funny because then years later, when DC finally dives into, getting the other arm of Warner Brothers to cough up Johnny Quest and everything, I got to write it.
Yeah.
It's always interesting the way things dovetail and you kind of end up back in stuff. It's like, oh, I was an artist on it. That didn't really work out. And then I come back as the writer with Evan as the artist, and that worked out pretty great.
Yeah, man. Evan being Doc Shaner for people not in the know when they hear first names.
Yes.
But Future Quest was excellent. And hell, man, even an adult Johnny Quest back then, coming off of those Kamiko years that they did the handful of Johnny Quest books that Doug Wildey did the covers. I mean, that was really exciting back in the early 90s. I mean, it really was, or 80s, whenever it was.
It was the 80s.
It was the 80s, yeah, man. No, that was incredible.
And going just at the early 90s, it was great. And Doug would fill in a lot of detail about what he wanted to do in the cartoon and didn't have room for and all that stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah, man. And Future Quest, and I'm glad because I don't know if we ever talked about Future Quest, frankly.
I don't think so.
No, man. I know we talked about it. I mean, that's the thing. We've been trying to get together to talk literally for years, either seeing each other at cons. I remember seeing you at Cincinnati Con, Tony Moore's old show, and
that's great.
That was a great show. It bums me out that they don't do it anymore because it was a tremendous show.
No, I'm just going to keep pumping that up as one of those legendary things to make people feel like they really missed out if they never went to it.
Yeah, and it was only a handful of years. It. Oh my God, I loved it, and they paid me. They had me help them with the programming, and I was doing, like wall-to-wall panels all day and stuff, and talking to people. It was fantastic, and it was a great chill con. Where it was that's like the kind of con you want, where people could walk up and actually spend time talking to you, and wasn't a high pressure con, and it was right across the river from Cincinnati in Covington, Kentucky, and just a nice little town, man. It was really convenient. No, I love that show. But back to Future Quest, That was epic, man. And I mean, it was so great. And Doc was one of the perfect artists that you had. And then, you also had, and now I'm blanking like an idiot, Nexus. What's that? Well, I was going to say Steve Rude. Yeah, I was going to say, thankfully I thought of it. Yeah.
Steve Rude, Ron Randall worked on it.
Ron Randall was excellent on it, absolutely.
Jonathan Case came in for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wish he could have done more because I love working with Jonathan.
Sure, man. And,
he and I started off the Batman 66 stuff together.
Absolutely, yeah. And he was perfect for that, too. No, I mean, that was the great thing. And it's funny because now I hear in background that, Hanna-Barbera didn't like some of the more ambitious choices that DC made with these crossovers. And, I mean, now you got a guy like Howard Chaykin who takes Rough and Ready. And obviously, as he told me, he's like, "Oh, my original treatment was that much more filthier than what I get. What you ended up with." And it's like, I believe it. Knowing Howard, I absolutely, I'm sure we're going into American flag and Black Kiss territory potentially if you put it in Howard's hands. What can I get away with? But
Howard's the best.
Yeah, man. But some of those other like team ups and stuff, I thought those were really great. God, Mark Russell's Flintstones was amazing.
Oh man, that was my favorite. I love that book.
I totally ignored it until I read his Snagglepuss, which also was epic. And, and people like Bendis are like, "Oh, you got to read his Flintstones." And I'm like, all right. I'm like, I just like when the John Goodman films came out and the British guy from Full Monty did the one movie as well. I'm just like,
right. It's
not working for me. And I don't want to read an off-model Flintstone book. I want to see those original designs. One of the reasons why I loved Future Quest as much as I did. I'll be coughing every now and then in the interview.
Good.
Just so people know. But yeah, that was the thing. And then I read it, and I'm like, oh my God, this is genius. It was great. I love that he turned the Water Buffalo Lodge into like a VFW. And everybody had like, bad memories of tree battles or cave battles with other cavemen and stuff. And, it was fantastic. It was brilliant.
Yeah, Carl Sagan's in there. It's just like, and Steve Pooh doing the art is so good.
Thank you for acknowledging the artist, because, I forgot that it was Steve. Yeah, he was
his art was terrific on it, and I'm sure he was loving, like, I don't have to break out a ruler for this whole thing. I can just go very organic with the whole thing. It was a joy to look at and read. I love talking with Russell whenever I can. He always goes somewhere interesting.
Absolutely. No, I had him on for his new Ahoy book, that Second Coming, and that's a very funny book. And balls.
Yeah.
So it's, Jesus learning how to be a better Jesus by observing a superhero. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Did you do any of those crossover books as well? I can't remember.
I just did a couple of short stories when they were doing that.
That's what I thought.
So
Go on. Yeah.
I did a Captain Caveman, and it was where the wizard Shazam essentially creates Captain Caveman by plucking him out right before he's about to die in the past and dropping him here in the present. And he and the Spectre are arguing. They're having a philosophical. In fact, I kind of, with the two I did, I kind of took cues from Russell. I'm like, oh, they're letting Russell do this. So I'm going to dip into some more meta type stuff with this, because I did that one, and that was pretty straight, sort of little comedy adventure. But then I did the one I did with the Message was the Funky Phantom, and it was all about Second Amendment rights. And hey, some people online, let me tell you, John, they got a little heated head up about that. It was no, suddenly I had these gun nuts.
They didn't like Funky Phantom being an NRA kind of guy, or was it the NRA people?
No,
that are just
the premise of the story was a bunch of GOP types in the Northeast in Connecticut get Jason Blood, who we all know as Etrigan, the demon,
Absolutely.
the human half of, and since he's one of my favorite characters, and I will squeeze him in every chance I get in any project, DC or not. And so he was like a paranormal guy. So they have him summon this colonial era ghost to settle once and for all what the Second Amendment means. And so, because that was the premise of the Funky Phantom. The weird thing about the Funky Phantom, and I know that's a loaded phrase.
Exactly. I enjoy every conversation that starts with that phrase. Go on.
The weird thing about the Funky Phantom is that you trying to remember it, I assumed it was like, oh yeah, it's because I remember when I was a little kid and bicentennial fever was all over the place.
That's right. Yeah.
It actually was made years before that. Like they couldn't. I guess they had bicentennial fever like 8 years before. So anyway, no, or well, like 5 years before. So Funky Phantom comes out in the early 70s, and he's like a guy who hides in a grandfather clock and dies, and then some kids resurrect his spirit, and he runs around with them. And because it's the Hanna-Barbera, they have a dune buggy.
Yep.
And they're
solving crimes.
Even though, and that's of course something only a bunch of Californian artists would think somebody in the Northeast would have. It's like they did not have dune buggies driving around Connecticut.
I've been there. I can attest to that. Exactly.
Yeah,
there's even a river. You even got the Mohegan River and everything right there. So technically, I suppose, but not very beachy.
Not a lot of dune.
Yeah, not very beachy. Absolutely not. That's hilarious.
But that's the kind of thing that made me. I mean, all of those cartoons just programmed me so much that to this day I still I'll look if someone's got a dune buggy for sale, thinking, yeah, I could probably get some use out of it if I could find somewhere to park it. And I've always wanted one ever since.
Man, but you go. Wait a minute, you go through the list for just a second of all the teen groups that were solving crimes, and Charlie Chan's Kids, and Devlin, the Evel Knievel Daredevil knockoff.
Right.
God, I'm trying to obviously Josie and the Pussycats were right along. Well, that was Filmation. That wasn't Hanna-Barbera. But yeah, it was like the Scooby-Doo template as we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of Scooby-Doo this year. Which I can't believe because I, sadly being 54, remember the debut of Scooby-Doo and going, God, this is a great cartoon. and really, like, we were all really excited about Scooby-Doo. That first season, the animation is just amazing and stuff. But just all the knockoffs that afterwards. Speed Buggy, of course, another Dune Buggy.
The Hair Bears.
The Hair Bear bunch, a fine group of bears with afros.
Banana splits. They're all in a dune buggy. Well, as you see, the dune buggy is the perfect vehicle because it's open.
That's right.
Yet you can jam in a bunch of characters and then not have to animate their legs. It gets everything that they needed.
That's true, and just the constant wheels, and you can have the backgrounds, changing behind them and stuff. You're right about that, and just animate their mouths as they always did. I love those stories.
Yes.
I never really paid attention to notice that, they all wore ties, and, like you said, you get this medium shot of the character, and all they do is animate the mouth. And it's like, oh, man. And it's so funny. I remember B. Clay Moore's message board. Somebody was complaining about how Hanna-Barbera dumbed down animation for TV. And it's like, no. Like, they were getting a $90,000 budget to make a 7-minute cartoon for MGM. MGM canceled their animation department because they started rerunning old Tom and Jerry's, and they do almost as well as the new stuff. So they're like, well, we don't have to spend money anymore. We got 10 years of catalog here we can keep re-releasing and stuff. So they cut them loose. They got to hit the streets, and they go to television, and they get $9,000 budgets. Literally 10%. And it's like, okay, how do we make that work? And they did. They figured it out. And also they leaned on the writing. So it's like, I'm sorry, you're wrong. It wasn't by choice.
And then Joe Barbera is telling everybody from Doug Wildey to Alex Toth, put a dog in it. So no matter what it is, they end up having to have a damn dog because Joe Barbera is sure dog, and he's right. People do like dogs, but I don't know if they like them to the extent Hanna-Barbera believed they liked them. And that was something Doug Wildey told me. He's like with Johnny
Bandit?
Quest.
Yeah, with Bandit.
he didn't want to put Bandit in there. He thought, why would you drag a dog all over the world? He said, I tried to talk him into a monkey because it made sense that, you
Sure.
get locked up, a monkey can go get the keys.
Well,
then when you see turn up its Space Ghost the next year.
Gleek, absolutely. That's insane.
Yeah, and then, Toth didn't miss the message. He immediately puts a monkey in there because in this other galaxy, they got monkeys, and who wear little masks so you can't tell which monkey he is.
So,
and he gets the keys all the time.
Gleek, and what were Zan and Jaina's?
It was actually everybody messes this up. It was actually Blip.
Oh, Blip is Space Ghost, or no? Blip is Space Ghost. Gleek was the Wonder Twins.
Gleek and Gloop, the Herculoids.
Oh, right. Yeah, the shmoo kind of ghosty looking characters that could kind of morph into any shape and everything.
It's kind of weird that there needed to be two of them when they even join together. Sometimes that kind of mess with you. Like, I think they were onto something here, way ahead of what people talk about cartoons doing now. It's like, what about these two characters that would turn into one and then pop back apart? I don't know.
That's true. How come there isn't some DNA? Hey, man, I got some Blip in me here. Wait a minute. The hell just happened? Now, you spent time in animation. Did you ever work for Hanna-Barbera?
No, I only worked. I think I sent in one to WB, hoping to get on one of the Batman shows.
Sure.
But I did get on The Big Guy and Rusty at Sony Animation.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I worked on that, and I came in late into the production, so there was no room with the rest of the Big Guy people. So they sat me back with the Men in Black teams. And it was cool because I was like right around the corner from Darwin Cook's office at the time.
Wow.
I probably mentioned this like 14 years ago when we first did this. But anyway, it'll be fun to check and see how right my memory is. But it was great because, I would just bug Darwin about like, hey, what was it like working over at WB? And he would tell me how they worked over there and everything. And other people were there at the time, like Cameron Stewart was his assistant.
Wow.
Yeah. There were all kinds of really good people over there. And then, like, for whatever reason, our show wasn't being broadcast anywhere on the Fox Kids network. And then we got to the end of the second season, and they started just, like, splitting us up. Oh, we'll call you if something else ever starts up. And then they started running it on Fox Kids, and it did great numbers. And they tried to put the show back together, but by then everybody was scattered to the winds because, everybody has to go get another job somewhere.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's a big, obviously, live TV problem, but it's funny to hear that it's obviously the same problem in animation as well.
Oh, yeah. It's like everybody's... And I remember everybody at the thing, as production was winding down, people are making phone calls everywhere, and they're getting sweaty about it, and I'm like, welcome to freelancing, dudes. This is what it's like all the time in comics.
God.
Yeah. We're just that's why we're constantly on the phone or whatever. We're
Sure.
just always laugh it up. But seriously, is there a job I can do?
I understand, man. Well, again, as someone a part of the gig economy, I can absolutely relate. That's true. So those were the two stories,
Yes.
Funky Phantom and Captain Caveman, that you did for
Yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah. I forgot. I was on Funky Phantom, and anyway, they summoned the Funky Phantom to ask him, like, what did Madison mean
Sure.
by this one kind of run-on sentence that
Right to bear
that we based everything on. And he's like, what is this document? I was killed before they wrote it. I don't know what this is. So he then has to sit down and read the entire Constitution. And everybody's falling asleep as he goes through, and he's reading through it, and everybody's explaining. It's like, well, it says, so you've already got they're talking about, I was in the Army, or I was going to be, a bunch of people holding AR-15s. He's like, so you do have a standing army? Like, well, all this is for if you don't have one. And the conclusion we come to at the end, it's not like I say no guns, but the conclusion they come to is that they have to have muskets. So, it's an 8-page story. I don't have a whole lot of time to be subtle and everything. But anyway, I had all these people screaming at me on Twitter. And that's when I discovered that I could just go to the settings and turn off anybody who's not following me, and bam, it all got better.
Insane.
It was nice.
I've
never switched it back.
Well, sure. Jeez. Well, again, I mean, I loved all those, smash ups, and I didn't think I would, but I think everybody really, gave a serious effort, and I mean, everything from Gail's Tweety and Sylvester with Catwoman, that was great, and Sam Humphries did Legion of Superheroes and Bugs Bunny, and it was like a bad romance comic. All the Legionnaires were hooking up and, gasp, and everything. I mean, it was great. It was like 70s young love issues and stuff. It was fantastic. So
it's a bunch of weird. You wouldn't think it should work, but then you find, like, if you just really turn people loose and let them try to make a story out of something, they'll make it work.
Well, Silver St. Cloud, former lover of Batman and Elmer Fudd. And it's like, all right, I'm in. Lee Weeks did a great job. It was fantastic, and it's the last thing we expected. It's like, this is actually really funny. Well, it's like...
Oh, God. Weeks is so good.
Oh, God, yeah. Absolutely. But again,
God, this incredible.
It's like, Archie versus the Punisher is this, like... Oh, and I know you're going to appreciate this reference, and everyone's going to go, what? Horn Blows at Midnight. I mean, Jack Benny made a movie in the 40s called The Horn Blows at Midnight, and it became a running joke because it was so weird. It's a fantasy movie, and if you like 40s fantasy, it's a fun, crazy movie. But I guess it didn't do well at the box office, and he always made fun of it and everything, and everybody else did. And, Archie versus the Punisher gets the same treatment, and it's like, that's a funny comic book.
How is that any different than any of this stuff?
Well, and it was great because you had Frank Castle at his most menacing, grabbing Archie, and Archie's totally, and it's great, it's totally like 50s looking Archie, completely freaked out, and it's like, no, this is funny. This is really funny. I don't know.
They were ahead of their time.
Absolutely they were. No, I love that book. I remember buying it and being very, very pleased that I bought it and going, this is a great idea. So, whatever. Sometimes people aren't ready for that. I mean, God, again, back to what you were doing and stuff with Batman 66, I wonder how much the comic book changed the minds of and I hope it did, of some of the, just absolutely won't ever give Batman 66 the nod, the television series, in terms of, it was supposed to be silly. And like my buddy Mike Cronenberg, who is a really great Batman expert, it's like, no, that was an embarrassment, man. That fucked up the character. And I get that argument. I totally understand. But I'm like, I don't know, man. I always feel, and recently I even said, I thought it was a precursor to what eventually happened with Ant-Man and Deadpool. In terms of, guess what? You can do the superhero genre and you can have fun with it.
It's weird too because. We did a panel on Batman 66 with Professor Ben Saunders from U of O at the show, and he showed a couple of clips from the show, and you could tell a lot of the audience, even though they were there because they loved it, were still like wondering, like, what's it going to be like to watch this? And everybody was laughing their asses off. It's because it was so funny, and it's intentionally funny. It's not like funny in spite of itself.
Right.
And that's the reason I took that job so fast when editor Jim Chadwick contacted me. I was definitely afraid somebody would make fun of it. I was like, no, it's like you don't get it if you make fun of the concept. The whole thing is Batman is in on all the jokes. And Adam West very well knew that. His soliloquies are just this amazing thing that I don't think you had that type of humor until Parks and Rec and The Office came along again.
Sure.
It's a very specific sort of meta playing with everything that takes. The funny thing is everybody in the show worships Batman, and even Batman knows he's that good, and is always kind of downplaying it a little bit, but he realizes he's the most important person on Earth as in any conversation that he's having. And I just love it. And the head writer was Lorenzo Semple Jr.
Yep.
Who then, when you bring up the subject of camp, he wrote the other big landmark of camp, the Flash Gordon 1980 movie.
That's right. Yes.
And what a great thing working, with Dino De Laurentiis. And so just probably always encouraged to go even bigger and broader, if
Absolutely,
anything.
yes. I just saw a great. The Writers Guild has a bunch of YouTube oral history interviews, and there is one with Lorenzo, and he's incredible. And he absolutely goes into detail of writing Batman and writing Flash Gordon. Also wrote 3 Days of the Condor and
Yes.
and Never Say Never Again, the Connery Bond. That's a good way to get into our Bond talk and everything. But yeah, no.
And Papillon.
And Papillon, absolutely, man. And in fact, wrote it, and Dalton Trumbull came in to polish it and kind of screwed him over and is like, no, I deserve top billing. And I love Dalton Trumbull. I mean, I think his story is fascinating. In fact, I was watching the Cranston movie 2 nights ago on Stars again. Just anytime it's on, I start watching it, no matter what, because it's a great story. But yeah, it was it's a great interview with Semple, and he really kind of lays out a lot of things, and also how much of an idiot he was. He's like, we're all on TV and we're knocking our heads against the wall trying to get into movies, and he's like, we were making more money doing TV, and he goes, it was like one of the dumbest things I ever did. He goes, but I just never took TV seriously. He goes, TV was trash. TV, even reruns were a new concept, and it was just like, no, we make it, and then we'll make another one next week or whatever. Big deal. It's chewing gum, and it was very interesting.
There's a freedom in that, and I think he did so much good stuff in TV because there's no pressure like that. He's thinking, I'm not doing a movie,
probably.
So
yeah.
I'm going to go in crazy directions, and it really works. And it's like everybody should be. That's the thing I like about comics. I've literally at this point written hundreds of complete stories.
Sure.
And I don't know a whole lot of other medium where you can do that.
That's a good point.
And not only just write them, but have them, out there tested, where people read them, you get to hear the reactions, which again, back to the shows, that's what I like. I get to see what works. People will come up to me, and when I hear them saying the same scene enough, like, okay, that worked. I know what worked, and I know what didn't because I never hear about it.
Yeah.
It's like writing for theater, where you're able to see it all hit the audience live, and exactly what's working and what's not. I mean, that's something. And you think about some people, they do pretty well for themselves writing screenplays, and they only get maybe a handful, if they're super lucky, of movies made. And they still probably never get to see why something works. They might get to go to the theater, watch people. You get to see it, or the cursed test audience, the worst thing to ever happen. That's right. Parker says, worse than AIDS, worse than cancer, the test audience is the worst thing to ever happen. But I obviously mean only in that context. But the finger in the wind storytelling, which is not something I agree with at all.
I hear you, man. I was a test audience for, and I'm glad because I gave it nothing but positive reviews, the Steve Martin, Lily Tomlin film, All of Me.
Wow.
Yeah, in college. I know. It's like, hey, we're going to show you a movie. Tell us what you think. And all we knew about it was that they did say that it was a Steve Martin, Lily Tomlin movie. And obviously it's one of his best movies, and God, he's amazing in it. I love Lily Tomlin. I'm so glad that, with this Grace and Frankie Netflix show, everyone's been tapped on the shoulder, and it's like, yeah, who's a comedy genius that nobody ever talks about? Lily Tomlin. And it's like, you're goddamn right she is.
Yeah.
She's amazing. So, anyway.
No, she's the real deal.
Yeah.
Now you've got me thinking, what's his name, doing the Back in the Bowl.
Yes, Richard Libertini.
Or Libertini.
Yeah, he was amazing. Yes, he's like a Swami kind of guy back when you didn't have to be the proper ethnicity to play such a character. Although maybe you can get away with Libertini. I guess he kind of had although he's Italian, he had a kind of Mediterranean look about him, and I say that as a Mediterranean person. But he's very funny.
Yeah, well,
it was a very cute bit.
Yeah, Like he'd play a Hasidic, he'd be all over this place.
Well, yeah.
I feel like on Stranger Things, the guy who plays the writer, who's more the conspiracy. I feel like he's cast specifically to be the Richard Libertini there.
That's so funny.
I was waiting for this whole talk to go off on Richard Libertini at some point.
Absolutely,
Here we are.
of course. No, God, he pops up on Barney Miller and a lot of other great sitcoms and films and has his 5 minutes. And I remember when he passed away, I was bummed. He's he's in Better Off Dead. He's the one of the teachers that wants to date John Cusack's girlfriend and everything. Not John Cusack. Yeah, it is John Cusack. I had to think for a second. Oh my God, this is Parker. This is what I expect when we talk. That we go off on these kind of shotgun tangents of God only knows where we're going to wind up. But
the great part is that we never make it back to the original point, and that's
due respect.
And that's where the listener at home is going, God damn it, you were almost to the thing I wanted to hear, and then you went off in Richard Libertini land, and now we're never going to get back to the dune buggy point that I wanted.
Well, bringing up Lorenzo Semple, obviously, and again, his tie to James Bond, making that 80s Sean Connery movie, Never Say Never Again. That was my initial thought, that we could obviously talk about James Bond Origin. Only took us 45 minutes to get to one of your books to talk about. Well, we talked Batman 66 and Future Quest as well. But go on.
We had to make up for some years we didn't do this.
Absolutely.
So, there.
So yeah, man, James Bond Origin. And it's funny because you said earlier, you were talking about frustrations with millennials and stuff. This is young James Bond in the 40s. I'm interested in terms of what the estate allows you to do in terms of telling these stories and stuff and setting it. Like, did they want it set during World War II?
Well, yes, because here's the whole thing. It originates with them. Dynamite gets the license to do James Bond comics, and they're all taking it very seriously. They brought in good people. On the whole, the James Bond wing has been so solid. I mean, everybody's brought their A game.
Absolutely.
It's just so good. And Nate Cosby, my editor, contacts me one day and says, "What do you think about an origin series? It's like how?" And he's like, "Well, they're maybe interested in following the Bond of the Fleming novels." And which puts you now not in an amorphous thing of wherever Bond starts, but the hard reality of where Ian Fleming referred to it, probably in You Only Live Twice, I think, was when he did most of his little asides, because at that point he started realizing, they're gonna do this one day, so I better get in my. Yeah, I better get in my guidance now.
Before Todd Phillips and
before
Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix decide to take James Bond into a different direction. I don't know what I'm talking about. Go on.
That's because you know how things work, and that's exactly how it would go.
Absolutely. If somebody else does it and it goes wide, that's the story, and that's going to be very interesting to see as we enter Joker weekend. But anyway, back to Bond.
Yeah. Joker weekend, yeah. Oh, please, John, if I finally ever get a movie out, stop Todd Phillips from going around talking about it if you can. Just don't let him be the one who's in charge of talking about a movie. I mean, literally anyone else involved with the production should be doing this. But, so anyway, they said, we want to they put together Michael Lake and some others at the Ian Fleming estate. He's worked in comics before. Put together a timeline with markers with saying, here is exactly what Fleming, just in case, I missed something from reading through the books. He goes, here's exactly what he said about Bond's past. He went to Fett's College. He dropped out to join the war, lied about his age so he could do so. And then was in this weird amorphous. He has to be a Navy man because when he shows up in You Only Live Twice, they call him Commander Bond.
That's right.
Everybody salutes him on the submarine and everything when he gets out of his torpedo coffin.
Yep.
And so that's got to be in there, but he's also got to be an early form of the Secret Service before it becomes MI5 and MI6.
Yep.
So anyway, they gave all this to me, and I just went off and stewed on it and started brainstorming stuff with Nate and coming back to them and like, how about this? And they made a great suggestion, like, since we are now saying at least the first Bond, if you go by that way and think that they're all just using his name later on, which, by the way, makes total sense because typically spies don't walk up, introduce, and say what their name is. I don't know. I don't know if you guys know a lot about spycraft.
I've been having this discussion with Bond purists. In fact, my buddy Rob Burnett, who I hope to be talking to later tonight, loves Bond. Is going to England for Bond 25 when it comes out next year, and I'm like, doesn't it make more sense? And also, doesn't it make it kind of interesting? Because, otherwise, die another day. He swims to Hong Kong. Ah, Mr. Bond, how are you? You're sweet sweaty. International secret agent, yet world known everywhere. And it's just like, I don't know how that works exactly. Man, that importer-exporter, he really, he gets around. It's like
things were done differently back then.
So, and it also makes it almost cooler and more of a game with the adversary that, oh, yes, Mr. Bond. It's kind of like the way James Mason is to Cary Grant in North by Northwest. Ah, Mr. Kaplan. And it's like, we all know you're not really George Kaplan. We all know you're not really James Bond. You're just this week's schmuck that has the job and has the 007. It makes it that much more interesting, I think.
James Mason is the best Bond villain that was never a Bond villain. I'm glad you brought him up because
it's a great movie.
I feel like he is a template for them, even though he's not in the movie.
No, and obviously the Fleming books were coming out, but the word is that Broccoli and Saltzman wanted Cary Grant before they got Connery, because especially Broccoli, because he was a family friend. And, the couple, he and his wife knew Cary Grant really well, but they're like, if he says yes, we're only going to get him for one. And we want to do like they were thinking series, from day one, which I think is pretty amazing. So, but back to Fleming Bond. So Michael Fleming, obviously, is this a grandson or is this a nephew or something like that?
Well, I don't talk to any actual genetic Flemings during it. I talk to people who work with them. Okay. That's their whole thing, is to safeguard. Sure. They know they got a good thing here, and they're not going to let everybody just go running roughshod over, especially a bunch of Americans. And that was I kind of did have to earn their trust, and it took quite a while. I suggested some ideas early on that they really didn't like, and. Okay. And I don't even know how serious I was with them. Like, I'm probably just sitting there. No, I'm just trying to find my parameters here to get the tone, and then we finally settle into it. But they suggested, what if we used the Clydebank Blitz, since he is Scottish, and which is really influenced by Sean Connery, and that could be the inciting incident that sort of makes him get involved in dropping out of school. And, so in that first issue, a friend of his is killed in the Blitz, and James is there on a school trip, essentially. Some other nefarious stuff happens, and he's chasing after some Nazi spies and stuff. But and James is a little old for his age, like many kids.
Okay.
Because he's also got a bit of the Batman origin. His parents died when he was younger.
Right.
So, like when he's 11 or whatever, his parents get killed in the Alps, just in a skiing accident.
Yep.
And in an avalanche. And I believe me, I'm going to get back to that at some point.
Oh, that's cool.
But I don't want it to. Yeah, all about. I don't want to. I get tired of Batman himself thinking about his parents all the time. So I'm definitely never going to make it where Bond can't stop mentioning.
Sure.
His mom or whatever.
I get that. Well, they even lean on that, if people don't remember, in Spectre. With,
oh, God.
Unfortunately. I know, man. What a missed opportunity. The perfect Blofeld. And God, Dave Bautista, as much as I love him in Guardians and stuff, he was great in Spectre. And it's just like, I have nothing but respect for Dave Bautista as an actor as well as an athlete and everything.
But he didn't deserve to be in the most boring car chase of all of cinema history.
Right. And yeah, that story just wasn't there. I mean, it's, Timothy Dalton and Daniel Craig are the most underserved Bonds in terms of decent stories, and it's a shame. And especially Dalton, man. I mean, through the 90s and into the 2000s, I'm like, God damn, it would have been great to get like this Timothy Dalton in a Bond movie, especially that Looney Tunes Brendan Fraser Jenna Elfman movie where he plays Brendan Fraser's dad, and it's like, oh man, like in the ways that Moore wasn't, as he got older, he got creaky and stuff, and Dalton just got more Cary Grant distinguished as he got older, and it's like, oh man, I'd like to see James Bond like this. It would have been great. So anyway.
The Timothy Dalton movie. That's what Ibrahim Mustafa and I are both big Timothy Dalton boosters.
Attaboy. Well, it doesn't surprise me. And Ibrahim's a good friend, and he's another good Portland buddy of mine. Absolutely, he'll be on soon. So. Yeah,
and we're always pushing him. Like, no, it's like the movie around him's not that good, but he himself is great in it. And imagine if the Scott brothers had directed those movies instead, and if they had some money to work with and slightly better script, or whatever, that could have been amazing. Who the hell thought Sam Mendes needed to be making Bond movies? Not me, but no one asked me. Like, I can watch Skyfall, but that's because I'm watching what Roger Deakins is doing, It's like, and I like the Adele song, but that's it.
No, I understand, man. I like Skyfall more than a lot of other Bond fans, but I get it.
Well, I like it better than Spectre.
Well, yeah, that goes without saying, absolutely. And Quantum
it doesn't have a surprise brother coming out of nowhere.
and Quantum of Solace.
Here's my thing.
Go ahead,
I usually remember.
Go ahead.
Don't you usually remember when you have a brother? I don't know. That's. Oh yeah, there was somebody else in the house.
That's like that great Brave and the Bold issue where suddenly Batman has a mentally challenged older brother.
Oh God,
Bob Haney and Jim Aparo, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, guys, Haney, he gets a pass because Bob Haney
did whatever the hell he wanted. Batman and Sergeant Rock. Yeah, but that doesn't work. Shut up, we're doing it. Okay.
No, and I do agree with Kubert and what's his name's take?
Kanigher?
Yeah, Robert Kanigher. It's like Kanigher died at the last bullet of World War II.
Yeah, Rock. Yeah.
Kanigher, Rock died at the last bullet. Well, maybe Kanigher did die at the last bullet of World War II.
Spiritually, I think he died. He got
definitely
very jaded.
When Sergeant Rock goes down.
Yeah.
And then the war can be over. Like, he's the living embodiment of that.
Absolutely. No, it was poetic. But again, it was kind of fun seeing Senior Citizen Rock running around with Batman and everything. I don't know. Those stories were fun. And God, all the Batman Wildcat stories, I love those. And it's like, that's Earth One Wildcat. And it's like, all right, if you say so.
Yeah.
Okay.
To me, it's like when that Young Indiana Jones series, and you're having to see old Indy hanging out in hospitals telling people stories. And like, this is not Indiana Jones. This is some old man who thinks he's Indiana Jones for some reason.
That's awesome.
But it's not him.
I'm sure we've had this conversation before. Whenever that comes up, the series, I'm like, they fucked up because they should really let Sean Patrick Flannery do one Indiana Jones movie now. Because he is,
nice.
Because he is Indiana. I mean, and I've even told him that at conventions, and he's like, "Thanks, man." And I'm like, "Come on!" I'm like, "You're not greedy." I'm like, "I'm sure you'll take $5 million to make that movie or whatever. There's reasonable in today's movie budgets and stuff." And you got the cred. I'm like, "You're Indiana Jones, for Christ's sake." I mean, as much as River Phoenix was Indiana Jones for those 10 minutes, it's like, fine, good. I don't know about the little kid. I don't know about the 6-year-old. But Teenage Indy, it's like, come on, man, it's sitting there for you.
Yeah, he was good. He was. He did a great job.
Yeah.
His parts, I enjoyed.
I agree. No, I agree, and I agree about the old man. And again, the 6-year-old kid, I wasn't a 6-year-old kid. I'm like, it's just like Anakin. It's like I don't want to watch 6-year-old Darth Vader, But
unless unless he wears the helmet as a kid.
That was fun.
Yeah.
That was cute.
Would have been awesome.
But
then he's like Rick Moranis
But it was
going around.
Yeah, it was like a Disney movie. I don't know, Phantom Menace at the end of the day. I mean, it's like half Disney movie, half cool shit. So I don't know. But back to Bond. And you're right.
Anyway,
yeah.
We use the Clydesbank Blitz, and that's where it starts off. And then we get into like Bond goes off to a training facility in the woods, and has a bunch of spycraft jammed into him in a very short amount of time. And then later, it killed me because like a year later on Netflix, that Churchill's Secret Agents show, which was kind of a reality show, came on, and I was like, this was everything I needed when I started this book, and it's all right there. And I was very happy how close I got on a lot of stuff from just reading. But boy, it would have helped to see it too. If you haven't watched it, I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but it's really enjoyable.
I like that. I also liked the BBC America Fleming, or BBC, I should say, but we got it on BBC America. The Fleming series, I thought was fun.
Right.
You know, with the guy who plays the new Q in the Daniel Craig movies. He was Fleming, and I thought those were credible and fun. I mean, for what they were and stuff, and obviously a romanticized. I mean, Fleming had his own real adventures and stuff, but which is amazing. You know, kind of like in the same way that the guy that does Strike Back, the British SAS guy that became a great writer, Chris. I can't remember his last name, but he's amazing, and you know, people like that are former military that can actually turn around and crank out good adventure stories.
Well, yeah, Fleming was in the Special Operations Executive, and so his background. So, and I do have that coming up where Bond works directly with the SOE.
Excellent.
Because I thought, well, let's get into the Fleming stuff really hard then, because it fits really nicely, and you know, you just expect at some point Bond's going to spend a lot of time in France.
Sure.
I'd run into weird things with the. Anyway, I made a reference to the fact that, you know, I'm not sure how much the Fleming estate trusted me early on, but as we got about half a year into it, and then especially on number 6, I could tell a turning point because their only note was cracking.
Oh, that's great, man! Beautiful.
Yeah, I felt so good. It was my best day. And it was it was on a story that's set in Lisbon called Isabel, and it's kind of Bond's not the central character, but you know, he's not the main one. She is, and he's trying to save this defecting German scientist. And they really like the tone of that, and of course the fact that it's taking place in a neutral territory country.
Sure.
Kind of really gets you into the spy vibe.
Yep.
You know, because a lot of times it's a straight war comic. I mean, we're just doing, like, we had one issue and the whole thing is all about Bond learning how to fly a German Junkers bomber and how to drop a bomb from it, which is kind of tricky. And it was like, wow, you could see how even just knowing how to fly, you wouldn't be able to take one of these things up and know what you were supposed to do. It was this automated process where you had to go into the dive, which is then where, you know, the planes were called Der Stuka, and they would make this big scream because those Nazis, they love their psychological torment, and they would have a siren on the plane that would create this terrifying sound as they'd come in. So you just know it literally is the whole death from above thing coming for you. And then they go into a as close as you can in analog terms to a programmed rollout where it dips down, curves up, releases the bomb, blasts the hell out of the place, and then they're blasting back into the air again. And so it's this weird thing where if you don't know all that, you assume they're the pilots flying by, hitting a button and dropping a bomb, and it's nothing like that. It's how you aim a bomb like a missile, because you're flying at your target and then cutting up. And that kind of thing, I felt like it was a billion times more research than I normally do for a comic. But it really pays off, and you're like, this is really interesting. And the thing I think, try to do with the book is, I obviously can't have Bond run in like it's a Tarantino movie, kill Hitler, and yay, Bond saved stop World War. Because it's about to get very fantastic in his life 10 years later, but at this point it's not. But considering it's World War II, it's really success enough for him to just simply stay alive during the whole thing.
And the various missions and everything, absolutely. And he's learning his craft, too.
Yeah.
No.
So we're very big on Bond does not succeed all the time. Sometimes he just utterly fails. But he does manage to keep coming out of it alive. And it's like, all right, that's how he's going to become this famous world-beating 007 agent that we know. It's the ultimate proving ground. And, God, there's so many stories still not told from that war that you can just dive in all kinds of places, even in just that theater, and still never touch them all.
Has he met Felix yet in your run, or would that potentially happen in a prequel kind of way?
It could potentially happen. I don't think it's going to.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it and say who we might meet.
Okay.
Because one of the things we do is we really stay away from, here's Bond's first vodka martini, or here's where he got his Beretta that he used for many years until M made fun of it, and then he had to carry a Walther.
That's right.
Or whatever.
That's right there in the first movie and stuff. Absolutely. So.
Yeah, it's like, so, and actually, people made fun of the movie Solo for doing that, but actually I didn't think they were egregious about it at all. I kind of enjoyed it.
I like Solo too at the end of the day. I think I don't understand the hate. No one can be Harrison Ford. I get that. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was a lot of, in the same way that Rogue One, I thought was a great standalone movie.
Right. Now, true, I never gave the second thought to Han Solo having dice. It is just not something that ever occupied any of my brain space, and I never thought about why they were there or why they should be there. So I didn't care about that. But yeah, I thought it was a totally fine movie, and it got caught too much hell.
Yeah, but anyway, again, back to Bond. How many issues have you done so far?
Back to Bond. We've done the first year, and that's all in 1941. And they haven't announced it yet, but you have to know we're doing something.
Right.
So, when's this going to air?
I was thinking of flipping it for tomorrow, this weekend, especially with us talking even Joker shit and everything. Why is there an announcement pending?
Yeah, they haven't announced it yet. I don't worry too much these days about stepping on people's announcements because I feel like we keep too much secret in comics. It's kind of weird. Isn't the idea to get the word out there instead of this whole information favor trading that we all do now, where they no, we've promised this news to this outlet, and it's like in 2 seconds, everybody else's preferred outlets will have this anyway. Sure. It's like,
well, and maybe they're going to do it to coincide with the movie and stuff,
probably. So, okay.
So, yeah, maybe this is the kind of thing that they would hope.
John, let's say hypothetically I'm continuing the series. It's just a pure hypothetical.
Sure.
That might go into the next year of the war, if such a thing were to happen. So, but who knows? Anything could happen.
Well,
boy, you ought to see.
And there's a good, not only World War II, but literally, the Reconstruction years of post World War II and all the spy activity that was going on then. I'm telling you, from an American standpoint, the CBS newscaster George Polk, who died under mysterious circumstances in Greece, I'm like, why haven't they made this movie yet? And it really is the first. They call him the first casualty of the Cold War, and also how interesting it was that the CBS reporters were the detectives of that story and tracking it down, and guys like Howard K. Smith, who you and I knew as an old man anchor on ABC and CBS and stuff like that in his later years, and on V, of course, doing the Resistance News broadcasts.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I read his biography, and I've read a bunch of, there was a great book about all of Edward R. Murrow's war correspondence and stuff. And, yeah, in, 1946 and 47, when Polk died in 47 and stuff, yeah, that was a big mystery. And literally it was Bill Donovan of OSS and CIA telling CBS, hey, you got to back off, or else this is going to get really complicated, because it might have been the Greek government that killed him. It might have been a paramilitary group sympathetic to the Greek government, and he was uncovering corruption, that the money that the Marshall Plan was getting to rebuild Greece wasn't getting to the people, and they were spending $1 million a day, and it was back then even, and it was not getting to the people. People were still living in poverty and everything, and Polk was sniffing around and going, hey, there's people in the government embezzling this money, and all of a sudden he winds up dead. So anyway, but yeah, I just think that that's a great period back to Bond, that as well as the war.
Yeah, I was taking notes because that's good subject matter right there, and and obviously, if we ever get to that point, because then you're in total third man territory, which is where everybody I know wants to be, because everybody loves that movie. The whole weird sort of post-war, things are in an amorphous state, and now the big enemy is really the Russians, and boy, that changed.
Yeah.
Yep. Where are you going with it? And it's like, I can have Joseph Cotton can be a hero. This is
totally
this is good stuff. And you get your Orson Welles. There's a good connection there, because
live.
Well, besides in The Third Man, if you remember, Joseph Cotton's Holly Martin's.
Yes.
And he's there looking for Harry Lime, and everybody's like, he's dead, and I don't want to talk about him. And but every time Holly gets in trouble, Bernard Lee, who plays him, shows up, and as a perfect on the nose name, it's Sergeant Payne, and he's literally just punching the hell out of Joseph Cotton every time he shows up. But what's so beautiful about it is he's also his only fan. Like, no one else knows.
Oh, that's right.
These westerns. No one knows the Holly Martin's westerns except for him. And after he knocks him out and he's lugging him off to the cell, he's immediately asking him fan questions. It's like, God, this movie was so far ahead of its time. It's just so...
Oh, God, it is so watchable over and over again. And yeah, man, again, listeners, if you haven't ever seen The Third Man, it's an incredible movie. Wells gets a lot of credit for it, but Carol Reed, the director, and Wells was always like the first one I know in his conversations with Peter Bogdanovich. And even Bogdanovich is like, well, come on, you had to have come up with this or this. He's like, it's Carol's movie, Peter. He goes, yeah. Carol made that. And then again, Carol Reed was an incredible...
Carol Reed was amazing.
Yeah, so many great movies.
And as much as everybody thinks of Wells as a blowhard, he was very good about crediting people like
absolutely.
that.
Absolutely.
If you did something good, Wells remembered it and he'd talk about it.
And it's
he's not like some people who would just then try to steer it back to themselves all the time.
It's a very educational movie too, about how the occupation right after World War II happened. And my dad was an American Sergeant Payne. He was an MP. And when it was first on TV, when I was old enough to get it, he's like, we got to watch this movie. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, I love my father. I mean, he was my best friend. So of course, what are we doing today, Dad? And he's like, he goes, you want to understand what I did during the war? This will explain it. And just
really?
He went after black marketeers and was part of the occupation force and everything on the American territory. And he was in Vienna. It was amazing. I always say that, and when Chuck Dixon wrote a great Wildstorm story about, like, what if the Americans went through the land invasion of Japan if the bomb didn't work, Operation Olympia. And my dad was originally training for Operation Olympia, and then the bomb worked. So it's like, okay, you're not going to Japan. We're sending you to Germany for the occupation. And it's like, all right, whatever. But he was in California training for the land invasion of Japan. And I always tell my sister, I'm like, we're very lucky that didn't happen because, he might have been killed at that, just like D-Day. Would have been a Japanese D-Day. And yeah, so no, instead he got to be Sergeant Payne. And he loved the Third Man. And plus, the zither music and everything, it was a Greek man playing the music, so it's got a very Greek international feel to it. And it's Joseph Cotton's best movie. And that woman, I forget her name, she's one of those one-named European actors. And she's so great in it, she's lovely, and it's a great complicated movie with a great complicated ending. And that's terrific about it. And it's so smart, and it holds up so well.
It's Alita Valley.
It's what?
Alita Valley.
There you go.
I just looked her up.
Yes.
I had to cheat, though.
No, that's cool. That's cool. I love that. I'm very happy with this 5-minute tangent about the Third Man.
Yeah, you probably were like me if, you're coming up as a little kid, like in the tail end of the 60s and then the 70s or whatever. Your family would have a zither around because in the 50s that was a big deal. And they never threw it out even though no one touched it. And you would inevitably find it in your attic and like, what's this? And, and you'd sit there and pick at it and try to play the thing and like, what is this strange little heart thing? But a lot of families would have those. Yeah. And it was all because of the Third Man.
That's true. And there's a great newsreel. Have you seen that newsreel that's on the DVD? They have an outdoor performance of Anton, whatever his name was.
Karras.
Was it Karras? I wasn't sure.
K-A-R-A.
Yeah, like Alex Karras, the football player. But yeah, Anton Karras.
Exactly.
And
sorry.
And he's doing this great zither solo. Now, we didn't have anyone in the family that had one, but I had an art teacher that could play the zither. And one day she was in our music class, and she was doing kind of Joan Baez kind of sounding music and stuff on the zither back in the early 70s.
There are other songs besides the Third Man theme. I've never heard anything other than the Third Man theme. Well, and something in Zorba the Great.
Yeah, or Never on a Sunday. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Oh, please, man, you've described every incredibly Greek, church outing and everything.
Now we're in the Suntress family tradition.
It's true. It's totally true. But it did, obviously, and again, these are the beginnings of the Cold War. By the time you get to Casino Royale, it's several years into it. But that immediate post-war period is equally fascinating to World War II. And like you said about Lisbon, certainly the film Casablanca gives that same vibe of, again, neutral territory, so everyone's kind of running around, information is being exchanged, or, illegal goods. Oh, God, there's that one 40s movie, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's the only movie where Spencer Tracy and James Stewart are together. And it's totally like during the war, and it's all about, it's one of the obvious Asian islands. And that's the name of the movie. I'm sure you can look that up while I'm describing it to people.
I found
What
it.
is it?
Malaya.
Yeah, of course, Malaya, exactly. It's not a great movie, but
I've never seen.
Not a great movie, but a really good movie. I mean, it's got its flaws. John Agar is in it as well, and Sidney Greenstreet.
Oh, wow.
And it's totally like they need rubber from Malaysia, and they need, and Jimmy Stewart is being sent by the government, and Spencer Tracy is like a convict that knows the ins and outs of the island, so they spring him to go with them. And it's them on this World War II mission because they need rubber. And it's fantastic. It's fantastic.
It's always interesting to see a movie where maybe the storytelling or the direction isn't that good, but there are very good people in it. Because the good people never forget that they're supposed to be good. So I'm sure Sidney Greenstreet is killing it in the movie. Because I never saw him not do it.
Yeah, John Agar's great in a kind of, again, supporting role, but, he's there and he's terrific. And, I mean, certainly had enough films where he was a lead as well. And, yeah, man, just seeing prime Jimmy Stewart and prime Spencer Tracy in the mid-'40s going at it, and it's like, oh, this is amazing. And you're right, because it is. There's just some parts of it that just are kind of dull. And I would chalk it up to editing and direction and stuff. But yeah, no, everyone's on their A game, and it's interesting enough that when it pops up on Turner, I always watch it. It's great. Like Journey into Fear, another great Orson Welles, Joseph Cotten movie.
Oh yeah.
You know,
God, Lionel Barrymore's in it too.
Yeah. Oh, I thought I said that, but maybe I didn't. I guess I didn't. Or not, I said Sidney Greenstreet. I meant Lionel Barrymore.
Yeah.
I don't know if Greenstreet's in it or not.
It is kind of weird to have Lionel Barrymore when you already have Sidney Greenstreet, but
are they both in it?
It's kind of like, yeah, they're both.
Holy
in it.
fuck! Okay, there you go. And again, that's why it's like this should have been huge.
Yeah, stop everything. Watch this.
Yeah, it really, man. No, and another great Sidney Greenstreet, and I know who I'm talking about this time, and Peter Lorre movie that I love that's in this same period, The Mask of Demetrius, is a great kind of Cold War movie and stuff in that post-war period. So, and they're the leads, which is amazing. So yeah, it's that's a nice little movie like that. So
yeah, I wonder if people appreciate this stuff now. It's like, wow, look how clever everyone had to be. Yeah. Now we're in the what might be called the dumb spy era, where everyone just walks out on TV and incriminates themselves. And you're like, what? You just said that?
Stupid Watergate, as John Oliver calls it.
Like, it is stupid Watergate.
Incredibly
It's
so.
all stupid.
Oh my God. It's, and again, well, we'll see. What else can you say? It's all there on TV for you to judge. Either side.
Yes, here, I'll timestamp this so you can know what I was puzzled at this morning before picking a friend up from the airport. I'm looking at the news, and El Presidente is getting on, again, ranting about stupid Watergate, which is, who knows what history will call this. I do hope they put a logo on the end of it, because I like that. But I feel like we need to retire the gate thing, and it's too stupid for that anyway, and putting a logo on the end of it.
Mar-a-Lago, very nice.
Yeah, like Ukraine-a-lago or whatever some people toy with calling it. And he gets on, and right here in front of a bunch of reporters again, where they're having a presser, he immediately starts saying, after narrowly missing being impeached the first time over Russian interference, then dives full on into Ukrainian interference, then starts saying, well, I think the Chinese ought to look into the Bidens too.
Yep.
I'm like, and then, boy, they wrap that thing up immediately. Like, well, we got to go.
Yeah, yeah.
What the hell?
Again, well, you know what it is? Honestly, and tell me, because you'll appreciate the reference. I didn't mean to step on you. Finish your point, and then I'll say it.
Well, I think that finished it. I was just like, me being aghast that, do you think by simply dropping the idea around enough, the law itself will change?
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's all about public opinion. Laws don't matter. And he's trying to normalize it. But you know what it reminded me of, especially the first time with the Ukrainian call? He's Colonel Jessup at the end of A Few Good Men. You're goddamn right I ordered him to be killed. All right, I guess we're done here. Wow, what's going on? What's the matter? And it's like, with less immediate consequences in the case of our president. But, yeah, it's like, no, dummy, you just did. I mean, and that's why everyone, I love and again, sorry, folks, politics, but everyone's like, well, they're already rushing to a judgment, and it's supposed to be an inquiry.
People, this is the world.
What's that?
Yeah. It's like, deal with it, people, it's the world, and we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, but I mean, for the people who are like, well, it's supposed to be an inquiry, and they've already reached a conclusion, it's like, because his hand was in the cookie jar. And he admitted that he was taking the cookies. And it's like, all it is you've got to, understand, if you don't think he's committed a crime, that you have to read it. It's a crime. It's on the books. You can't do it. Now, what happens, I'm shrugging. God only knows. Again, it took Republicans to go to Richard Nixon and say, this is above and beyond. You got to go. They've got you.
Yeah.
And it was literally the most conservative guy, Barry Goldwater from Arizona, Bomber Barry, going to Richard Nixon and saying, we can't support you. I don't think, unfortunately, we're in that kind of world where rules are above politics. Everyone's win at all costs. But, I mean, the Congress had no, Pelosi and those people, they had no choice. I mean, again.
No, because they figured out that they can just shove the goalpost incredibly farther than they ever thought possible. So they're just going to pursue that as long as possible. I like the Colonel Jessup reference. Like again, it's also stupid, few good men.
Right.
Like
Because again, it's like, well, of course I did it, and he's so confident that he's
you
doing the right
out
thing.
there on that golf.
Say it again.
You need me out there on that golf course.
Yeah.
You need me eating cheeseburgers, cold cheeseburgers with the team over here in this room of the White House.
Whatever. Anyway,
that to me is the symbolic picture of the entire thing. That standing there with a bunch of
Big Macs,
cold ass McDonald's food all over the place.
That's true. Oh my God, isn't this great? Aren't I great? Yeah. Okay.
It really. And people aren't kidding too when you get fiction writers saying this just completely pulls the rug out from under anything. Because in the past, when you wanted to make a social commentary in your work, you would tend to go big and do something like over the top as a science fiction concept, maybe. And now you can't go big enough. No. They've made it impossible. This is why we have to talk about it in a podcast, because we can't do it in stories anymore. They've made it all superfluous.
Well, look at how, and again, it's had nothing to do with Trump, but again, it shows you where our society is today. Two movies in particular, Network, and Network was like, well, we'll never go this far. Sure, we will. Yes, and now it is like, okay, so congratulations, Patty Chayefsky, you presaged Fox News. And it's true, absolutely. And then the other movie like that is King of Comedy, where I think the ending initially was maybe in Rupert Pupkin's mind in terms of he's going to jail, but in his mind he's going to become a big celebrity and all this great stuff's going to happen to him and everything. I took it more as wish fulfillment on his part, like a lot of his conversations with the Jerry Lewis character and everything. Whereas now it's like, oh no. That's like the movie's ending has changed because society has changed. It's like you could totally see this guy getting a book deal, being the subject of all this stuff, and then when he gets out of jail, he lives his dream. And that's another reason why, as much as I am a little like squeamish about going to see the Todd Phillips Joker movie, I can't help but appreciate the blatant King of Comedy reference, putting De Niro in the Johnny Carson role, the Jerry Lewis role.
I mean, talk about being on the nose. Like, please, wear your influences on your sleeve. Why don't you? Like, we're gonna. Like, holy cow! If Jerry Lewis had been still alive, he would have dragged him into it somehow.
That's hilarious, ancient Jerry Langdon, 90-something. Did you see his last movie, Jerry Lewis's last movie, Max Rose?
No.
I liked it. I have to admit, it's very movie of the week. His wife dies, and they want to put him in a home, and he finds out that his wife, who he was so devoted to, played by Claire Bloom, who is still lovely in her senior years and stuff, he discovers she had an affair with, of all people, Dean Stockwell. And so he's, it's kind of bugging him, and he wants to find out what happened and everything. So he wants to find Dean Stockwell. But it was okay. Jerry did okay. And again, it was very movie of the week. Kevin Pollak is in it. The woman who plays his granddaughter is excellent in it. And it was a dignified final performance.
Was Pollak playing his son?
Yes. Yeah. And
that makes sense.
And when he's in his retirement home, Mort Saul, Ozzie Davis, and I think it was Ozzie Davis. I know Ozzie Davis has since passed. I think the movie was sitting on a shelf for a while before it finally got festival kind of showings and stuff. But he did good. I really thought he did good. And it's and again, I'll admit, I think Jerry Lewis is insane, but I like a lot of his Frank Tashlin movies that he made solo. I like a lot of the Martin Lewis films.
I love the Martin Lewis film.
Yeah. But I even like Disorderly Orderly. There's a Frank Tashlin solo Jerry movie, and the one the bellboy where it's he's silent throughout the movie. It's at the Fontainebleau And
Yeah.
So I mean, there are decent Jerry movies and everything, and he as a filmmaker intrigues me. So I was really interested to see this final movie, and I'm glad I did.
We can't judge his oeuvre until they finally release The Day the Clown Cried.
Agreed.
And until I see that,
bets are off.
It's like, come on, Jerry, he's dead now. Come on, just show it.
Well, there was talk. I don't know what his final wishes were, but I thought there was talk that they were going to release it finally, and then also his talk show from the early '60s that ABC pumped a ton of money into, and it was just a bomb from day one. And it was on Saturday nights, and it was like 2 hours long or 3 hours long, a ridiculous thing. And it was just horrible, and they only made like 13 episodes. And there are clips of it you can find on YouTube, but I thought they were going to finally release it. And then they had to, they'd spent so much money, they built a theater for him and stuff, and that turned into the variety show, The Hollywood Palace.
Oh, God, that interminable variety show.
Yes, that was kind of a Sullivan.
Was it like 2 hours long or something?
What's that?
It was like, see, Jerry anticipated podcasts, but he assumed you could go on even longer.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll just have a freaking 3-hour show or something. It was like, no, I think it was 2.
Probably 2.
But still.
Probably 2, but it felt like 3, exactly. And I mean, God, he had a great conversation with Ali before Ali was champ, when he was still Cassius Clay.
Yeah, he's lucky Ali didn't knock his lights out, because he was talking a lot of smack during that.
I thought they were both kind of delighted with each other. Again, excellent tangent. Colonel Jet. So that's to me, especially when he confessed, "Oh yeah, I made the call. It was a perfect call." It's like there's Colonel Jessup on the stand. So anyway, back to the Cold War, and so James Bond. Well, actually, we did some good James.
Later, I'll mash this all up, and the Trump family will be transposed in that painting that Margaret Keane did of Jerry Lewis's family.
Yes.
Where they're dressed like jesters or whatever, and they all have weird little alien eyes, and then it'll be the Trumps.
Did you have houses? Did you have houses growing up that had those kind of crazy paintings?
I sure
Me
did.
too, man. Me too.
Always scared the crap out of me to find those doll-eyed Margaret Keane prints everywhere.
Well, and they even
and the weird thing is. It's like, and I don't usually really go, like the kids today, they don't understand the horror, but they don't believe me when I tell them you would go everywhere and everybody had these damn things.
Yes.
They would either have like a macrame owl, or they would have the print of some Margaret Keane kids with the gigantic eyes. And that I associated in my tiny brain with the movie Village of the Damned.
Yes, absolutely.
It had nothing to do with it, except it's of the same period. But the kids in Village of the Damned, if people don't know, it's based on the book The Midditch Cuckoos. And it's all about, there's an eclipse, and like a town is kind of walled off for a bit, by some kind of force field, and when the whole thing's over, the next year, all the women in town give birth to these little Aryan super babies with super light blonde hair,
telekinetic powers,
and glowing eyes, and they all can communicate mentally, telepathically, and it's great stuff.
Oh yeah, they remade it. I thought they remade it back in then.
Oh yeah. John Carpenter did it. But it's nowhere near as good. And it had Christopher Reeve in it.
Too funny, man. No, I agree. It's that's exactly what those eyes look like. And they even kind of found their way because of the art style into. I remember reading children's books that had kids with big eyes, and it's like, what the hell? And it was disturbing. It really was disturbing.
It's one of those zeitgeists that everybody's running with at the time, and it just haunted me, man. I was like, why is it always kids with creepy eyes?
I know. The parents loved it, but nobody asked the kids, hey, what do you think? I think they're kind of weird. But yeah, man. No, and I think it was kind of a 60s remnant because, again, I just remember the households in the 70s, and, it was probably like art prints that they bought in the 60s. and they still had them on the walls. Those, and I'd also add to the mix the clown paintings, the sad clown paintings. My pediatrician had sad clown paintings and stuff, and we're like, what the hell is this shit? Good Lord. Emmett Kelly, go away.
Who enjoyed these paintings?
What's that?
Who enjoyed these damn paintings? I don't understand.
I don't either, man. Bob Kane was doing a lot of clown paintings like that during his collecting Batman checks in the 60s and stuff like that. So, before I forget, I also wanted to point out, as you said, the irony is the comic books that came out while the TV show was hot, and sadly a few years afterwards, that finally prompted the Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams realistic look and back to basics and stuff. Those were the ones that tried to be funny and just weren't. Those are horrible, and it's after that Carmine Infantino period, but they really tried to embrace the vibe of Batman '66, and they just didn't get it. And I mean, the art's standard '60s art. There's nothing wrong with the art. It's Joe Giella and I forget who. I can't remember the team as far as. Might have been a lot.
Nick Cardy.
Yeah, was it Nick Cardy? I guess you're right. Probably was Nick Cardy. It's a shame because then you see Nick Cardy's covers, those beautiful painted covers that are so much more dramatic. And maybe it was Joe Giella that really was kind of.
Well, if you're talking, maybe it wasn't Nick Cardy, but I want everything at that time period to be Nick Cardy.
Well, those covers were incredible, but I'm talking about the interiors.
That'll come to me later.
Like I said, I'll look.
I was going to tie this all together like, hey, remember when Roger Moore was an Emmett Kelly type clown in Octopus?
That's right.
But that actually doesn't tie up anything with a bow. It doesn't help at all, but it just reminds you of a way you didn't want to see Roger Moore.
Very true. Octopussy. Octopussy was all right.
Octopussy's actually a solid movie.
Not bad.
Even though you had to finally get to James Bond as a clown, but there it is. So, see, Bond can be everything too. He could have been a big-eyed kid.
Very true.
Maybe.
I'm looking at Joe Giella's Wikipedia page, and I guess it probably was Shelley Moldoff. Yeah, I guess it was probably Joe Giella and Shelley Moldoff doing those comics in the '60s. Probably was.
No, John. All the comics were done by Bob Kane. I'm sorry. It says right there on the front page.
True. There's the signature.
And if you ask Bob Kane, he was doing.
Oh, absolutely. Fascinating character. Unbelievable guy. Friends with Stan Lee. I remember hearing him on a Chicago radio talk show doing publicity for the '89 movie. And it was he was right there, impresario.
Yeah, when are those two screenwriters who just did the Dolomite movie going to do one on Bob Kane? I mean, they did Ed Wood. Now they've done Dolomite.
I know you and I are like, when
it's only
Dave Hardman goes to see the Dolomite Eddie Murphy movie, we're like, oh man, can't wait.
I love that. He doesn't like leaving his house, but man, he got the hell out for that, didn't he?
And his Jack Webb house little excursion.
Oh God, I wish I had gone to that.
Oh, I was so envious.
If I still lived there, I would have been there.
Oh my God, me too, man.
One, I love estate sales anyway because not so much that I'm ever looking for anything, but I'm always fascinated by it because it's a look into the past.
Sure.
And I try to imagine what the people who lived there, like what their life was like and what they were into. And boy, that would have just overloaded my circuits to go into Jack Webb's house.
Absolutely, because he became such an important.
Yeah, the Ozymandias stack of TV.
Well, yes, exactly. The wall of TVs, just like you see in old retro things now and stuff. And again, he was such an important television producer beyond Dragnet for people who don't know. And I mean, he had Adam 12 on, a cop show. He had Emergency, a fire department / hospital show. And, he would just crank out all these TV shows and was very important to Universal in terms of production. And so, he had the money. And also, did you see, it was out last year, the Frank Sinatra Palm Springs Houses documentary? Oh, it's amazing. It's so worth watching. Because they've really kind of kept it to look as retro as it needed to be. And Sinatra had 50s recording equipment in his house, so if the mood hit him, he could cut a demo or something like that.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And the same with Julie London. There's a great Julie London BBC documentary, and she actually was a former Jack Webb wife, and she was an actress on Emergency in the 50s. Mm-hmm. She was kind of the Madonna of the 50s because she was like this sexy pinup woman that also was a great jazz singer. And all of her album covers absolutely showed her in bathing suits or lingerie or whatever. And she's a beautiful redheaded woman, but they showed her house, and she had recording equipment in her home as well. And I love that stuff. And I love, again, being a broadcast nerd. I mean, that's what got me into broadcasting. We had all of WGN Radio's old equipment donated to our high school for our high school station. So we were working with all this classic 50s and 60s technology that was built to last. And we were doing it in the 80s and stuff. And it was, oh my God, it was amazing. So.
And what was it about the 50s that someone who looked like Jack Webb could land this goddess?
Well, he was, as conservative and crew cut solid as he was in terms of his politics and everything, he was kind of a hipster. Like, he was a big jazz, he was a huge jazz fan. And that's what I was asking Gabe about going through his house and stuff. And he loved Dixieland jazz, 20s kind of style jazz. But, Pete Kelly's Blues was a great movie he made, and it's an excellent radio show. And, yeah, he was... and again, it's that right time of technology and music and also home technology. I mean, that was really like the beginnings of having not a home theater per se, but certainly like a hi-fi system and having great sound and wanting, big gigantic speakers and giant stereo consoles and stuff. I'm sure that's not what attracted Julie London to him. But again, I think it was... and also, I do think he had a good sense of humor. I think he had a great off-the-wall, weird sense of humor. So I could see jazz people liking him and stuff, myself.
He makes me laugh. Yeah. I guess that explains Arthur Miller and Marilyn Monroe, too. What the hell?
And Bancroft and Mel Brooks. I mean, she's like, this little monkey man comes up and starts cracking wise, and she's like, I couldn't help but fall in love with him. He makes me laugh. And it's true. I mean, God, especially 50s and 60s Anne Bancroft, wow.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, and again, Mel Brooks looks like a chimpanzee, for God's sake.
Mel Brooks is Mel Brooks. He's, the great thing is, he still is him. And, and you occasionally when he'll do a little something and talk on, it's just wonderful.
Oh, God, even that terrible To Tell the Truth ABC game show, he's been on there as a panelist, and it's like, oh, thank God there's Mel Brooks. Or when he shows up on Kimmel or any of the talk shows, he's the man.
My favorite is, and I make fun of Seinfeld a lot because I'll watch comedians in cars talking about poor people. But when he goes on the one with Carl Reiner and Mel Brooks, I love that one because you finally see him snap out of super successful guy who is on par with everybody else. Once Mel Brooks starts talking about making Get Smart, Jerry turned into a kid, right there in front of your eyes. And I would have done the same thing. I would have been like, he's talking about making Get Smart. This is important to me. And I totally got that.
If you like that, by the way, Writers Guild, those videos, and again, they're on YouTube. There's a great 90-minute Buck Henry one. And obviously he goes in and gets smart and all of his amazing accomplishments and stuff. So,
I was recently watching old Tonight shows with Mel on it. Because they were long pieces. Yep. The show's an hour and a half long. Not 2 hours Jerry Lewis style long, but it was pretty long. That's why they'd have to interview authors. They never have to do that anymore.
Exactly.
Yes. You don't have to suffer through an author's book.
But I like that Seth Meyers does it. And also, obviously, all the comic book people that Seth Meyers has on.
Oh, God, yeah. And bless Seth Meyers. He's the best.
Oh, God, yeah. I know. And I'm always, God, when Brian goes on or Tom King and Alex Ross and everything, they all nailed it. They all were fantastic on it.
It's it's still one of those things that I have a hard time believing. It's weird, and it's one of the good side of this weird timeline that we find ourselves in, where it's 2019 and, a president just said, hey, maybe China will look into this too. Like, yeah, what? Or like earlier as I'm driving down the road and there's a guy out there spinning a sign that's talking about buying joints and edibles.
It's a Spencer. That's great.
Not something I saw. Not something I saw coming 20 years
me
ago.
Neither, man. I hear you. I know we're gonna get him in. We're getting him in January in Chicago. That's when it's legal in Illinois, and it's already legal from a medical standpoint. But I know it's In fact, I found out a member of my family will be growing marijuana for state regulated purposes.
They're going to dye the river green on another day other than St. Patrick's. It's going to be the Chicago welcoming.
That's hilarious. I hope that happens. Well, Jeff, what are you working on currently beyond Bond? I feel like I don't want us to miss anything that's out there right now.
At the moment, I've been working on this weird mashup, John Carter, Warlord of Mars, where it's with
Mars Attacks.
It's Burroughs, John Carter versus Mars Attacks, Martians. Which
that's great.
I was about to poo-poo. That was another case. Now I make it sound like Nate Cosby just comes up to me with, "Hey, you want to write this thing?" And then I say yes. But again, that's the way it happened. And he said, they've got both now that they have both of these things. They wanted to get them together.
Genius.
And I often will do this where I go, well, they're too far apart in concept. The only way that could work is, and then brain starts going ahead, filling it in. And then at that point, it's like, just let me write it because now I've figured it out. And I was like, otherwise, I just wasted my time. So, working with Dean Coates is the artist on that. He's horrific. It looks really good.
No, I'm glad you remember because I did see it. I've seen it solicited. I've looked through them and stuff, and forgive me, I haven't picked one up yet. Sadly, I'm waiting for the trade like an asshole. But I think it's a great idea. So do you get? I mean, obviously, this is set in Carter's. I'm assuming this is set in Carter's time. That he didn't time travel forward or anything like that. So we're getting the origins of the Mars Attacks aliens during the John Carter era. I'm assuming
it's set in the modern day.
Oh, it is in modern day. Go on.
Yeah, but we show you Carter time, the 1860s, and we give an alternate explanation of how the Mars Attacks Martians came about.
Sure.
So it's maybe one of the more convoluted ideas I ever did because I thought I could have kept it simple, but I thought I'm going to do a big wacky sci-fi idea that you have to stew on for a while because why not? I haven't done anything like that in a while. We'll see. And again, it's that whole thing of testing out with the audience. We'll see if they'll tolerate this. And if not, I won't do it again. But, I had fun with it.
Do they speak ack or do they speak telepathically?
Actually, I could not have them say ack because there's certain things that are specific to the movies that you can't do.
Oh, that's true. And I guess on the trading cards, there was never a need for a dialogue bubble to...
it's just saying that. Now the Martians have an underwater tank or something like that.
Yeah. God, those trading cards, man. Why, I have no idea. But, man, I guess because they were only a dime or whatever, just like a comic book had been a few years earlier and stuff. Those good Lord, Wally Wood and I don't know the other artists that worked on those things. But
it was
it Norman?
Oh, God. Yet. We're almost there.
Is Norman whatever?
No, not Weber.
Not Weber, right?
I'll get it in a second.
Yeah, I'm looking up while we're talking.
Obviously we all think of Wally Wood because he's the comics guy. But it was what's his name who did a lot of covers for things in pulp.
Yeah,
pulp
that's what I assumed. I thought it was Norman, whatever his name is, Norman Saunders.
Saunders, thank you.
Of course, 1962, the first year that those debuted, and they would just keep reissuing them because they were beautiful. They if you like, if listeners like retro, like Gold Key and Dell covers, those beautiful painted covers for all.
They were gorgeous.
Yeah, they were along those lines. And then again, if you remember the Tim Burton movie, the goofy design of the Martians, all brain, all bug-eyed, very much like John Carpenter's They Live. I'm sure that was an inspiration for the aliens in They Live and everything. Hilarious.
Oh, they look exactly like
yeah,
that.
with hair, but they have hair. As opposed to just the exposed brains. I mean, it'd be like a guy that's human until you put the glasses on, and then he's got the Mars Attacks face and everything.
Yeah, my favorite part of the movie, I feel like the movie's kind of all over the place, but
I like the movie. I agree. It's not a perfect movie, but I like it. Go on.
Well, there were different things. Like, I don't think Jack Nicholson was originally going to play multiple characters. Or he was going to play one more character. I can't remember which way that went. But that whole intro with them coming up out of the craters and flying to Earth, I thought that was great.
I loved James Brown playing himself and becoming him.
Yeah.
And him and Tom Jones are the heroes of the movie. And also when and Pam Grier is his wife, and the kids have the gray guns and they're shooting the aliens and stuff. And and the ultimate hero is Slim Whitman. That's right, Rosemary.
And that threw a monkey wrench in my series idea too, because I was going to originally have a yodel thing. I was going to kind of connect it to that. I wasn't going to use Slim Whitman, but I was going to do a takeoff on that little Walmart kid.
I don't know the Walmart kid, but I'm fucking.
You don't know the Walmart kid? He was just in the the fourth remix of Old Town Road. Wait, why can't I think of the Walmart boy's name? Hold on
Walmart
a second.
boy.
It's all I got Mason Ramsey.
Oh, okay. I still don't know him, but all right.
My kid would be so mad because we did so many Mason Ramsey jokes over the past year. So I was going to originally have that factor into the defeating of the Martians. Like, hey, we've got a new Slim Whitman here. It's someone who yodels and is famous.
Again, it's big because it's in the movie. You can't do it.
And if you look back through the first issue, I think I have a Walmart set up in there specifically for it. Before I found out that I can't do that because it's a movie solution.
Hilarious.
That Tim Burton, I believe, came up with, and Howard Stern always claimed credit for it. He said he was the one who said they should be defeated by Slim Whitman. And again, it's a print the legend sort of thing where it's like it doesn't matter if it's true or not. It sounds great. So, but I think I got to a story point, as you'll see in the next issue, the last of the 5 issues.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, I think I saw either the solicit for 5, or something, or you were promoting it, or somebody was promoting it, and again, I saw that, I'm like, oh my God, great idea. And, I
mean, sad lack of Mason Ramsey, but I feel like we still landed the plane, so be curious to see what people think. I am also, at the moment, I just am finishing up writing, doing, again, I don't know if, like, this is one of those things where it seems like it would be okay to talk about, but there's another one of the, you know how the 80-page giants and stuff are coming out, speaking of Walmart.
Yeah, the Walmart 80-page giants, sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing a very similar thing for another store, and it's Batman stories with Batman going against his classic villains, and Nightwing and Robin are involved. And that'll probably be announced pretty soon. And those have been a blast because they're just classic Batman stories where I get to have a lot of, just do exactly the kind of thing I'd like to do with Batman.
Who's the artist? Or are you not able to say?
I don't know.
Okay,
yet.
Then we'll leave it. Yeah.
Because it's one of those where I'm having to write them ahead of time.
Oh, sure.
And it's probably going to be 4 separate artists. That's not my favorite thing. I really like knowing who I'm working with, but sometimes the nature of the job is they just can't figure them out at the time. and then they'll just find the best available artist that they like to work with.
Sure.
Who fits the story.
Well, I hope that's an opportunity for you and Jonathan Case to get back together, and
that'd be good. He's finishing his own project right now, so he's probably too busy.
Okay.
I just him, but God, he's good.
Yeah, man. No, all the Batman 66 stuff that you did. Well, and in fact, I remember us talking about this when I saw you in Portland, and I'm like, well, yeah, it reminds me of the great, while the animated series was coming out, the Batman Adventure comic books, and they're great. And yeah, they were made for an all ages audience. And obviously, sometimes people, ooh, I don't know if I want to read that because if it's not edgy. And it's like, well, it's not. It may or may not be edgy, but what it is a bunch of really good Batman stories. And again, the same with the Superman adventures. Mark Miller, he's like, finally, they're letting me write Superman Beyond Red Sun. I'm going to kick the shit out of this stuff. And he did. And they were great.
I still think it's his best stuff.
What's that?
I still think it's some of his best stuff.
Yeah, totally. It really is.
Yeah, that's what everybody loves to hear. Hey, whatever you did in the past, that was your best stuff.
Well, and I can appreciate that. Well, gee, I kind of like what I'm doing now, and exactly. Well, it's like that Stardust Memories moment for Woody Allen. We like your older, more funnier movies. I get it, but no, it was great. Dan Slott on Batman Adventures. God, he did amazing stuff and great ideas of things that you take for granted. And my favorite Slott story like that was all about the trophies in the Batcave and why he kept them and everything. And it was for Robin. It was for Dick Grayson as a kid because kids, they like having trophies. They like having stuff like that in their rooms. So like the Batcave's like Dick's ultimate fantasy room and stuff. And it's like, yeah, that's why we got the dinosaur and the penny and all that stuff. And we hung on to that stuff. And it was great.
Dan is very good at grabbing something that was right there in front of you all along and kind of turning it around so you see it clearly. And people don't realize what a skill that is,
Sure.
But because with a lot of this stuff, I think it's extremely important for things to feel intuitive because that kind of determines what sticks. And when you're working with the mythos of a character that's been around forever, if something doesn't feel, it doesn't have to you don't have to go Roy Thomas with it where it has to directly hook back to some bit of continuity, and I'd rather you didn't. But if you do something that doesn't feel right on the whole, it's not going to stick around. It's just never going to, even if it was kind of clever or fun at the time, it's like no one's going to remember it, and everybody's going to all kind of agree this is not canon, and poof, you're out of that sort of thing. But then some other things, for whatever reason, they can be weird. They're usually written by Otto Bender, but they'll just stick to a character and they're part of them for their whole existence. Superman is always in some form going to have the Bottle City of Kandor.
Yeah.
And they're always going to keep giving him the dog, no matter how many times somebody who takes it very seriously says, no, Superman does not have a pet. There's not a dog on another planet. 2 years later, Krypto is back, and Krypto is never going away.
Agreed. No, it's funny. I just re-released my one conversation with Bill Shelley, the great comic historian that we just lost last month, and it was about his Otto Binder book. And man, again, and if people blew off the episode, let me tell you, if you like comic book history, read Bill Shelley's books. His Kubert biography is amazing. He just did, and I'm sure you and I talked about it, that amazing James Warren of Warren Publishing, Creepy and Eerie, an amazing biography.
Oh, that's right. I was trying to find that.
So good. So goddamn good. And I was like, I got to make time to talk to Bill Shelley. And then I found out he was sick and he passed away. And I'm like, oh, man. And I'm so glad he got it done. Because, he's really got an amazing collection of... his Harvey Kurtzman book is amazing. They're huge. And they're deep, deep dives into these people. And, and I'm sure if you listen to Word Balloon, you're interested in the creative process. All of these are so worth reading. And, Shelley he understood. He knew what to look for. He knew what to bring back. And also, by the way, again, another recent guest, and she's an Oregonian, Jennifer DeSalvo, did this great biography of Gardner Fox, and that's amazing too. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. So you got the Batman thing going. You're wrapping up John Carter into Mars Attacks, which is hilarious, and
possibly doing some more James Bond.
Indeed.
In World War II.
Anything else that we've missed?
Let me think. Nothing that's far enough along.
Okay.
It'd be the kind of thing where I start to talk about it and then I completely change it, and hence everybody's like, "What were you talking about with that thing with the monster or whatever?" And
I'm making the rounds then with. Did you see Ad Astra, the astronaut movie with Brad Pitt?
No, I thought I would see it last week, and I still have not seen it yet.
It's still relatively new, and I can appreciate that, and that's fine. And we have unfortunately did not find a reason to break into one of my favorite Standby Word Balloon features, and that's another edition of Ape Talk. But there's we would.
Yeah, but I feel like if we do that every time, everybody's going to come away thinking, I just always hear the same episode.
No, man, it's just.
So I feel we should, as badly as I want to talk about it, I feel like we should not talk about it this time, because people are going to think, oh, this is that same one John always plays, where they talk about Planet of the Apes. I'm sorry, we keep regurgitating our same thought.
I love it because it gives me the chance to play that great Jerry Goldsmith music from Escape from the Planet of the Apes, just the opening of that, which I love. And it's like
that music's so primal. It's so good.
Man. And it's seriously, going back to Agents of Atlas, I think was likely like one of the original reasons why we would talk about gorillas and stuff. But that was just like me, you, and Gabe could just like always like, all right, all of a sudden, and especially as the the newer ape movies came out, which I don't know, man, it's just not the same. I need that old mythology. I'm so surprised.
Weirdly though, I think you'll find when you finally watch them, they connect the dots.
I know they do,
and they're not there just to do it. They actually work great as movies on their own, but it's kind of impressive.
Oh yeah,
how well they get you to Cornelius times.
All right.
You can see like, oh, we're not far off. It's going to come up in another 100 years, and they're all going to be wearing clothes and riding horses. Well, they're already riding horses.
That's true. Exactly.
So what you'll have to do for this one, since we talked about Bond a little bit, just play John Barry music instead, and that'll make everybody happy. You'll still get a primal song in there.
I gotta watch it though, man, because I used to play incidental music from the Star Wars movies, and YouTube pounced on me and said, "No, can't. I gotta take down your video." I'm like, "All right."
No, that's soft. That software.
Yes.
Music hunting.
Oh, yeah.
It's too good.
So that's why I figure, again, the Jerry Goldsmith third ape movie. Okay, I may be okay with it, and I always just play a little snippet of it, but mostly the opening. I
can justify an ape connection though, because going back to the DC 100-page giant things, one just came out in Walmart, and it's a Flash thing, and I have a story in there where Flash goes against Gorilla Grodd. It also nicely ties into what we were talking about earlier. A bunch of leaders in Washington D.C. suddenly start calling for war, except they're calling for war with Canada, which doesn't make any sense. And Flash and Iris, Barry and Iris are looking at the news on their phone, and notice that as they're at the podium, they're leaning on their knuckles and beating on their chest, which Flash is like, they're being mind controlled by Gorilla Grodd. And I never stopped loving the fact that the world's fastest man, his biggest enemy, is a super intelligent gorilla. That to me is the essence of the DC comics I love, right there.
Ape City too. Solivar and Ape City.
Everything. Gorilla City.
Yeah, Gorilla
City is one of my, when I wrote Aquaman, I made sure, and they went to Gorilla City for an issue.
I remember that. That's great.
And I love the fact that Fraction and Lieber have Jimmy Olsen go to Gorilla City in the Jimmy Olsen series. I'm like, yep, people who know the good stuff always have these things
Absolutely,
happen.
man. No, you got to embrace that stuff, and it's that's what makes that's what made the DC universe fun when Marvel was being fun and everything. I mean, it was they were fun on different tracks, and again, you go back to like you said, Otto Binder and God, the Legion and the Upside Down Rocket being their clubhouse and everything. Kandor, God, just the designs of Kandor. I mean, those stories when Superman and Jimmy Olsen become Nightwing and Flamebird, and they got their little jetpack belts that have them flying around and stuff like that, and they're the Batman and Robin of Kandor. I'm like, yes, please. Oh my God, that one great panel that Kurt Swan panel. Excuse me, Kurt Swan panel of them flying over Kandor and stuff. It's like, absolutely, man. And you can't. I mean, obviously, there's the spit curl, so you know it's Superman. There's the red hair, you know it's Jimmy, and those costumes are fantastic, man. Oh, I love it.
Kurt Swan had this quality. I loved it. He was like the first superhero artist I knew the name of as a kid. Because to me, whatever he drew was the real thing of whatever was the real version of the thing. So it wasn't really realistic, but in comic book terms, it was realistic. So to me, it was like, oh wow, that's Batman as drawn by Kurt Swan. Well, that's him.
Totally.
It's like I was lucky that in the '80s when I wasn't even in comics yet, but I could go to and set up at little comic shows around because I was just starting to get like in some anthologies and stuff like that. And I went to one in Greensboro, North Carolina, near where I was from. And Kurt Swan was it was a little hotel and everything, and they had Kurt Swan out. And I was sitting there at my table, and I was working on. Somebody asked me to do a commission, and so I was like happy to have something that I was going to get paid for. That's all artists. And I was sitting there thinking, I want to go up and talk to Kurt Swan, but what can I say to him? This is weird. And just as I'm stewing on it, suddenly there's a shadow over me. And I look up, and there's Kurt Swan holding his hand out, going, "Hi, I'm Kurt Swan." I'm like, and as I shake his hand, I suddenly, like, as if I had somehow prepared it and had it, because I had prepared it all my life, I just spewed out this whole, "This is your life, Kurt Swan" thing. I was totally doing the Chris Farley to him, like, I'm gonna tell you who you are. And then I'm going to tell you what you did, because you don't know. And no, but I just told him, like, first artist like I just said to you, first artist I could identify. I copied your stuff all the time, or whatever. God, I just it means the world to me. And he would just politely smile and everything, because he's heard it all before. But you could tell, like, he wasn't just being nice. He was like, he genuinely was happy to hear people still know who he is and still love him and everything at that point, because he's retired. And then he moves on, and I remember Al Bigley, the artist, was sitting next to me, and he goes, and then he points to me and goes, "Everything he just said." I went, "No, you come up with your own stuff, because I just did this big heartfelt burst of feelings and history at Kurt Swan, and I want to hear other people's now." But that was really cool, and I love the fact that he was just going around "Hey, I'll just go meet who you artists are."
That's cool. Yeah, absolutely, man. No, that was always
you don't see a lot of that. You don't see a lot of the old guys.
No, I was going to say that's what was great about Will Eisner, his appreciation of new artists. And well, okay, what are you doing now? And genuinely interested in what they were doing.
Yeah, you'd read an interview and he'd talk about somebody current, and you go, "Hey, Will Eisner knows who so-and-so is." And it'd change your whole perspective on him, because you would now not think of, "Oh, you're the artist from the golden age." You're like, "Oh, you're one of the guys now."
Yeah, you're a peer. No.
These creators.
Yeah, he's treating you like a peer and is genuinely interested. Hey, man, again, as a broadcaster in my 50s, that's why I'm forgive the pat on my own back, but that's why I'm really glad I got into podcasting when I did. And younger podcasters are like, "Wow, man, you were doing it like right away." And I'm like, I don't know. It just seemed like this was where more interesting radio was happening, was online, and I wanted to be a part of it. And there were no restrictions, so I just started doing it. And here I am, 14 years later. So,
yeah, you were in the Wild West.
well, I put it in astronaut terms, and I say I was a Mercury astronaut. And and it's like, because I love, as much as I love Mark Maron, he's like, oh yeah, I've been doing this since 2010. I'm like, yeah, guess what? A lot of us were already doing it for 5 years before you showed up, but that's fine. It's cool. Whatever.
Yeah.
And also, it was great. A couple of months ago, Variety had Conan on the cover about his podcast, and all these podcasters, and I was cracking up, and they're like, "Whoa, God, he's just only been doing it for a year. How come he's on the cover?" It's like, because no one would buy a cover of Variety with you on the cover, but I said myself. I found a picture of me pointing to a microphone, I think from the Charlie Hebdo protest period and everything. I'm like, because nobody would buy this, and I just kind of scrawled the word Variety on top of the photo and everything. And it's true. It's like, come on, man. It's like, no, we need the big stars interested in this stuff. But yeah, I'm very happy to have been one of those first people back in 05.
Don't worry, they'll poop out.
What's that?
Don't worry, they'll poop out.
Yeah, it's like, exactly. Just keep showing up, man. And that's all you got to worry about. That, and honestly, it was just Monday, International Podcast Day. And I won't name names, but I know some very good friends of mine who have been doing comic book podcasting almost as long as me, that were saying, hey, something, I don't know, man, I kind of think podcasting's flattening out. I don't think it's going to go any further. And this was 2010. And I laugh at their faces now. Exactly. It's like, you guys don't know what the hell you're talking about. I go, people are still discovering this stuff. And I had no, crystal ball, and I'm not saying I'm Bill Gates with any, I'm certainly not printing money on my podcast and stuff, but I do okay. I thank my subscribers that support me. And, I mean, obviously, the future is still right there. And we really are still at the beginning. So even though I'm a Mercury astronaut, it's still progressed that much further.
It's a new golden age of audio,
yes.
And it just reminds you that really it maybe just morphed a little bit, but didn't really go away, and that people still like taking in things audially, like. Wait, that's not
absolutely. Well, I know what you mean. From an audio. Yeah, they like to consume audio. No, audio is perfect because you can work out to it, you can clean to it, you can shop, you can just walk around, you can
drive.
Drive, absolutely, man. It's like, no, there's an intimacy to audio that video, it forces a different part of your brain to kind of make it all happen. And again, I love video, but I got in this business to tell stories on audio.
Well, and I think a lot of us who like comics too relate to it works for us because, like you were saying, the difference is, as I understood it, is called active and passive receiving information. TV is completely passive. It feeds you every bit of data that you need to build the story. Comics gives you frozen moments. So you're always filling in the in-betweens of the panels. You're not confused by the fact that Batman is here in the room and then the next panel he's across the room. You get it. You filled it in. You were the in-betweener of animation that made it happen. And that's why you connect so hard to the stories, because you were, in a way, in a small way, a co-author. And radio audio does that too. It just gives you the sounds. You build the whole images in your head, which is why people are always, always frustrated with what broadcast personalities look like when they see them.
Yes.
It's like, that is not what I thought you were going to look like.
I always say that when I meet people. I'm like, I know, big letdown.
Yeah. No, yeah. Like, you've worked in in this your whole life. You know exactly and you probably still do it to people and think, I thought you were going to look like this, or whatever you thought they were going to look like. Right. And then it's like, you're bald. They're always bald. Of course they are.
Well, Jeffrey, I hate to say it, I got to wrap up because I got another talk coming up in about 25 minutes.
Oh,
so,
good.
Yeah, you'll be. I'll,
Good. I hope I've warmed you up.
Oh no,
for that
you
one.
did.
That's
No, we
gonna be-
did great. I knew we would. It just all happened to fall on the same day, and I'm doing a third one tonight if everything works out. So I'm Iron Man today. I'm doing a lot of podcasting, but that's good. I got to catch up. September was kind of a rough month, between traveling and then also I got really sick right after Portland.
Right.
Flu hit me bad. That's why I'm coughing.
You sound like you're doing pretty well though.
No, everything's all right.
Yeah.
Everything's all right. So, all right, buddy. Well, no, great conversation. So, people look for John Carter versus Mars Attacks. Pick up the 2 volumes of James Bond Origin, and maybe there'll be more in 2020. We certainly hope so. And
maybe,
maybe.
yeah. But hey, do get the trade collections. The first one just came out.
Awesome.
Terrific artist Bob Quinn is in there. The second one will have Ibrahim, who we talked about before. It's just amazing stuff.
I didn't realize the second volume isn't out yet. Damn. All right, man. Let's go, Dynamite. Crank that shit out there. So they're probably again holding.
Well,
it
yeah,
movie.
it'll be fairly soon.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. And man, everyone can look forward to a new talk with Ibrahim as well. It's been a while, but I know he's a big Bond nut as well, and he gifted me with a beautiful Goldfinger piece. All those prints that he made that were based on the various books and stuff. And he gave me the Goldfinger one, so that was really cool.
That guy knows. He knows his Bond.
Oh no, it's fun. And I want to talk to Arun Singh eventually about Bond as well.
Oh yeah.
Arun really loves the character, and my buddy Rob Burnett, who hopefully I'll be talking to tonight. He texted me right before we got started. He's like, "Hey, tonight's good." I'm like, "Excellent." And I know he's ever since they announced that principal photography's over with Bond for 25, he's like, he's buzzing about it. So I bought a Corgi.
I'm excited.
I don't know if I told you, I bought a Corgi DB5 Aston Martin from GoldenEye.
Oh,
it's
man.
great. And I also bought the Hot Wheels.
I'd love
I also bought the Hot Wheels Aston Martin as well. So.
I love that car.
Oh, my God. Epic. Just like the Batmobile, definitely. But anyway, before we hit another tangent, I thank you, Jeff Parker, for coming on, as always, and we will hopefully do it again a lot sooner than years between our next conversation.
Let's shoot for a year. Okay. Thanks so much for having me on.
There you go, Jeff Parker. Great stuff, man. James Bond Origin. Check out that first trade. Can't wait for the second trade to come out. And also, Mars Attacks and John Carter slammed together at Dynamite. Really funny ideas. And that Batman stuff sounds intriguing as well, coming up soon. We'll get more information for that as the official announcement comes out. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Word Balloon. I also dropped a new episode. It's a couple old conversations with Greg Rucka, but with Batwoman debuting on Sunday, I figured it would be fun to look back at her origins. And Greg had a rough run co-creating Batwoman with J.H. Williams, and we're going to talk to Jim and Greg in the days and weeks ahead. It might be a little bit longer. It might be next month for Jim. But Greg and I are due for a new talk, and certainly we're going to talk about Stumptown and how it's doing, and the Old Guard and Netflix. Greg's just exploding right now with projects that are making their way to television, and I'm so happy for him. It's long overdue. Lazarus certainly in development as well. We'll see when that finally comes through as a television show. Neat stuff for Greg Rucka, and Batwoman I know is bittersweet for him because he left early. And you'll get that. And unfortunately, part of the conversation, why I think it's intriguing, you'll hear a lot of plans that Jeff had for Kate that didn't happen because Greg and DC had a falling out at that period. And it took a little while for things to heal. And things are great now, of course. And Greg is back doing Lois Lane. He did that excellent run on Wonder Woman with Liam Sharp and Nicholas Scott. And, it's, I'm glad. I mean, I want Greg's creator-owned stuff to do well, but I love the fact that, people like him and Bendis are able to create new stuff and also keep one foot at one of the big two and put their fingerprints all over the various universes. And Greg is a great fit for DC. He was always a great fit for Marvel, too, in my opinion. But you hear a lot about Kate Kane's origins and these conversations from 2009, and I've represented them today. So that's the companion podcast to this Jeff Parker conversation. I hope you'll check it out. Thanks again, League of Word Balloon listeners, via Patreon. If you want to subscribe to Word Balloon, you go to wordballoon.com. and click on the Patreon ad or go directly to patreon.com/wordballoon. Thank you greatly for your financial support as sponsors, League of Word Balloon listeners. Word Balloon is also brought to you by Aftershock Comics. I've been talking about Aftershock Comics for about a year now, and the reason why is, hey, they make great books, and they're doing a great job, and they're very inventive and creative, and they tap a lot of your favorite writers and artists and ask them to come up with new concepts, and a lot of times they succeed. Baby Teeth with Donny Cates and Animosity from Marguerite Bennett. Books from Chris Sabella and Stephanie Phillips, great newcomers that are doing tremendous work. And people like my dear buddies Phil Hester and Tim Seeley and other great creators are just coming out with tremendous titles. Tim Seeley doing Dark Red, a great vampire book set in the Midwest. Pretty funny, interesting concept. Stronghold from Phil Hester and Ryan Kelly. Cullen Bunn doing so many great books for Aftershock, including Night Temporal, and also, Brothers Dracul and Dark Ark. Dark Ark, the story of Noah, from a very rough standpoint. Really interesting concepts, great ideas from Aftershock Comics. I'll have more conversations with Aftershock creators in the weeks ahead, but you don't have to wait. You'll find full story descriptions, preview pages, and the diamond codes on these books and how to order them through your local shop at AftershockComics.com. Thanks again for listening. More great stuff already coming for you in October next week. I'm already ready for our next episode. Brian Hitch is back, and great conversation about Batman Grave, his new collaboration with Warren Ellis. Also, he just did a great book, a one-shot with Jason Latour, a great Lex Luthor story in this Year of the Villain and all the one-shots that are coming out. This is exceptional. If you haven't picked it up, you've got to. It's incredible. Great, great stuff. And happy to talk to Brian about that and Batman Grave and a whole lot of other things. It's a great, lengthy conversation just like this one with Jeff, and I think you'll enjoy it. So that's coming up next week. I hope you'll join us. Until next time, Word Balloon is a copyright feature of Shaky Productions, copyright 2019.